part of the conversation.
We are live. Welcome to Hardly Initiated's late night special. It is your host, Tyshawn Jackson, here again with another episode with my co-host, Ryan Catchings.
Every episode is getting better and better, and I think we got an awesome one for y'all today.
Actually,
Yeah,
I
this one-
know
Yeah.
we got an awesome one here today. All right? Because fellas, if you're out here navigating these streets, you're dealing with some ladies, she got the career, she got the job, you're a little turned off by it, you're like, I don't know if I should do this. And ladies, you got a career. You're moving and shaking and you're still trying to figure out how to incorporate it. Well, listen, look no further. This here's for you. We are going to drop the game here for my professional, my busy, my ambitious, my alpha females. So the word floats around the space, and we're going to do it with these two beautiful ladies here on the set today. Excited to introduce you guys. Let's actually start over here to my right. I usually go to the left. Let's actually start over here to the right.
Mix it up a little bit.
Mix it up a little bit because we got a very special, woman here that's going to be dropping some game here with us. I mean, the background that you have is pretty dense. You've done some super dope things. I mean, you were the former senior editor over at Essence. You done interviewed some of the biggest talents in the game. I seen you.
True.
Even, I mean, how many people gets to interview Oprah Winfrey?
I mean, God
Wow.
is good.
I mean,
Wow.
yeah, you really did that, and you're doing that. And not only have you done that, you're also a very well accomplished author of a book, Boss Brides. Okay, a big part of what we're gonna be talking about here today.
I'm excited.
And you've
Let's
been
go.
changing lives for many ladies who've been, digging into your work and your content. So it's a blessing to have. We have Sharia Jackson here on the platform today. Welcome to Hardly Initiated.
Glad to be here.
Yes. And then look, put the camera over here. Y'all already know
It's about to be good.
this person we have here. Y'all have seen her before on Hardly Initiated. This is not your first time. Welcome back. The author of Dear Alpha Female. It's not him. It's you.
I'm not
Alright.
sure they was too happy last time you was on the show.
A lot of guys gave me a hard time on the short form,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
think they had to listen to the entire conversation to really understand where I was coming from. But
It's
it's all
a big
good.
difference between the
all good.
people that watch the Instagram reels
Yes.
and the family that's on the live, that's actually on here watching a full episode. So shout out to y'all if you have made it here today, because this is going to be a phenomenal episode. We have brought these two beauties and talents in to be able to give you maximum value today. But before we do it, Ryan Catchings, what we got to come.
Yo, so check this out, guys. We learning every day how to better and better operate the channel. Now, one of the things that we found out is that the like button really within that first 30 minutes is going to dictate how much this video is shown. So guys, do us a favor and go ahead before we even get started and hit that like button. Another thing is Tyshawn and I have officially decided to host our first event. We're in the workings now trying to figure out exactly how we're going to do it, because we want to make sure that we give you guys the absolute most value. But of course, for us to be able to do that, we need to get your feedback. We need to get your contact information. So if you check the link in the description, if you see events, go ahead and click that link to the right and go ahead and give us your information so you can get on that email list and we can let you know about the really big things that we plan on coming up. And that's really all I want to give them to them to start off with today. That's it for right now.
And let me tell you,
Two things: like button, email.
And listen, y'all better stick around to the end of this thing, because we've actually worked with Sharia Jackson to put something very special together for the ladies, but it ain't coming now. Stay patient. All right, stay patient, because we're gonna drop something special just for the Hardly Initiated family. But until that happens, let's get into the game. Let's get right into the game. We prepared such a conversation I'm so excited about as we get into it. All right, so I want to know, first of all, I called Sharia when I was recruiting, and it was funny because Sharia was like, "Oh yeah, I want to talk to Ryan because I heard something he said on one of them."
Oh,
shows."
is that right?
Oh.
Yeah.
You never told me about that.
I didn't tell
Yikes.
you.
Okay, cool.
She was like, "Yeah, I want to talk to him because he said something about how he don't prefer or don't like to date
Professional women. Oh, he laughed because he remembered.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, that's why this is a very important conversation.
Mhm.
Now,
Because a lot of ladies are offended by that.
yeah,
Well,
lot
I'm
of
not
women.
offended. I mean, you to each your own preference, but it's just
I wanted to talk more about it because I think we have to talk about it. Because if in a community, if right now the majority of college degrees are going to Black women in the Black
Mhm.
community, so many of Black families. I grew up in a family where if it wasn't for the fact that my mom was a professional woman, had a degree, and took care of 2 kids after my parents divorced, where would I be? So the idea that we're holding a woman going for her dreams against her can be problematic. Well, also, it's not that it's just on the men, it's how are we carrying being professional women that has men not seeing it as a detriment. So we got to have that conversation as a family, because it is, you aren't alone. You aren't the first man. In my 10 years working at Essence, covering, managing relationship content, I encountered men who often were like, So it's something we've got to talk about as a community. We got to have that conversation, because if you're saying that, you're actually saying no to a large amount of quality women just because you're saying you're holding something that should be positive and you're seeing it as a negative. But let's talk about it.
We got to talk about it.
So why is that though? Because you see this as something that men see. Why do you think men are intimidated by professional women, just in general?
Well, and it's funny because
That's an assumption too, by the way,
transparency-
intimidated.
Or don't necessarily prefer professional women.
Well, the reality is a lot of women, if you are leading with quote unquote professional and what I do, if your identity as a woman is my job and what I do for a living comes first over me being a woman innately and how God designed me as a woman, then that might be a detriment or a turnoff to men. But if you are a woman and you integrate and live a full, sexy life and you're able to fund it, it's not an issue. And in reality, I found so many men, because women would encounter that. They would hear those comments, do I need to shrink? Do I need to hide my accomplishments? And I would always say no. And as a professional woman, I'll be honest, as I got more comfortable in who I was as a woman, as I excelled in my career, the quality of the men I dated continued to go up, because I was in rooms that were a higher quality room because of my career that gave me access to a higher quality man. So that was my experience as a professional woman. But I do hear that. And I think when I hear men, and this is, I can't speak for you, so the best person to ask would be this man who says, it's not my preference, because I've met so many men who don't feel intimidated, and they prefer a woman who's come in with her finances together, who can take care of herself. So she's showing up as a partner and not as a dependent.
So was that a question, by the way? Was that you asking? I think Ryan, she kind of threw you a question just right there.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I still stand on that. I mean,
I would just like to know why.
So I think the main thing is the priority. If the priority is the career, is the likelihood that is going to change is just, to me, very unlikely. I mean, to me, it's a conditioning, right? You know, and I also work corporate, and I also dealt with the tragedy of having to, you know, get the corporate ladder and all of the things that come with it, including emotional suppression and working with people you generally don't like, and working over hours and through the night and every weekend. So when I think about what I was able to do and the limits and constraints that put on my personal life, it's just not something that I would want to date somebody who dealt with the same thing.
Let me ask you this. Are you planning to financially cover all expenses in your house?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, so you're okay if she comes and she's not financially that strong?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I guess for me, I'm wondering, and I respect what you're saying, because we know that that's our reality. But when we look at our community and the fact that a lot of us, I'll speak for Black women that have had my experience, right? So we don't come from a place where most Black women have had the opportunity to see their mother stay at home while their father worked, right? So if you haven't seen that, it's very unlikely that would be your ideal, right? And so we talked about that when I was on the last time. So it's interesting that you wouldn't be willing to meet a woman who you all would create this goal together of you being able to shoulder most of the finances and realizing that she would be okay with, if she felt comfortable and secure. I think a lot of times in this discussion, men don't take into consideration that a lot of times Black women have not felt safe. So we haven't seen our fathers be able to shoulder this financial burden and be emotionally supportive, and our mothers be able to rest in their femininity. But that is not to say that can't happen. And so I think the inability to say, Let me find a woman who I connect with. And if she's had similar experiences, that's fine. But we should create our family dynamic together. So if we decide together, and my first husband was like that. He was like, I saw my mother stay at home. And so I want my wife not to work. And he was like, I'll take care of the bills. I don't believe you should marry a woman if you can't take care of her. I think if more Black women were given that chance and that opportunity in a way that felt secure and not because I'm trying to control you, but I really want the best for our family, I think more would be open to actually raising a family and putting the family priority first at that point, if you would be open to giving them an opportunity.
Now I want to know this because I want to see if there's even any truth to it. Just, and y'all keep it real with me.
Mhm.
Because y'all have been professionals and no professionals.
Right.
And do you guys see that like women who are in that space, especially taking on a big role, they might tend to neglect home in some ways?
Mhm. I think that I would say that can be true. I think that, anytime, it's not this ideal and this myth of the Black woman who's superwoman is not realistic, right? So if you see a woman, I have girlfriends, I have a background in public relations and journalism. And so a lot of my friends are own their own agencies, and if you work an 80+ hour week and you're constantly traveling, there's no way you're going to be Susie Homemaker, right? That's just not realistic. That's not to say that you can't do those things. That's just saying that that's not your priority at that time. What's interesting is that men a lot of times think if this is how she is now, she's not going to change. And I believe that a lot of us are doing that because that's what we have to do at the time. I was talking to a friend of mine that has her own agency, and she was saying, Crystal, I want to date. And I said, well, what does that look like? And she was like, well, I have all this stuff to do. She's operating under duress, right? So if there was someone, she has a child, she has a daughter, and it's herself. So if she had someone that was saying, hey, I'm willing to give you some help, she may be able to not work as much as she works. But I think the fact that we're penalized because we are great at taking the lead and we are able to take the burden because that's who we are, I think a lot of times men don't appreciate that strength and can't see that strength benefiting them in other areas besides just cooking and cleaning and rubbing their feet.
See, I get what you're saying. It's not that I don't appreciate it, because I do. Because, I love working with professional women for all the same reasons I don't like dating professional women, because they're going to go above and beyond.
Yeah.
They're going to go above the call, and that's just how they do. But that's the thing, is like, I'm really just not interested in dating somebody who wants to put all that into, really, it's another man's program. Is really what it is. So now I understand why a woman will want to do it, because it comes with community, it comes with structure, it comes with goals and aspirations that you can reach. But my thing is, I would rather for that same level of focus to be going into being more family oriented and to taking care of herself more, because those are just not things that the average woman who's in pursuit of these aspirations get to actually do,
Or man.
Or man. So
right, it's a lot of self-neglect.
Right,
that comes with advancing, like at a certain level.
Now
and I'm gonna confess, I was one of those women who had my career come first. I started, like I just talked to Ms. Tashawn earlier, I started my career. I graduated HBCU grad, shout out Howard University. I graduated Howard on a Saturday. I started working as an editorial assistant and moved from DC to New York that Thursday. And so I started my career very early, right out of college. And so I was in a professional environment where so many women were working hard. So it normalized for me at a young age, seeing women work. I came from an environment of working women, strong women in my family. But the other paradox that came with that, though, is I was always passionate about relationship content. So I was covering relationship content. So I was a girl who understood always in the back of my head, yeah, I'm working hard, but I still desire partnership. I'm still a lover. I still know that I'm meant to be a wife. So I knew that I had to find balance. And one of the reasons I wrote this book was because I was getting that question. Do I have to choose? The same question we're asking in 2023. We're still asking that same question, which shows that we are not seeing enough solutions. We are not seeing enough examples of women who can have both. So I interviewed over 100 women I call my working wives, because there are many women all over the country who are successfully navigating, managing a career, plus managing a marriage. But I think the biggest thing we're not talking about is how we are conditioned to be professional women from birth. And to all of us, what as kids, what are you going to do when you grow
Right.
up? That's the big question.
Yeah.
But there's not always that same nurturing. Here, let me train you. And so I wrote this book and I did my work so that I could understand how can I be both? How can I be attractive to the type of partner I desire? Plus also make sure I'm good, because Ryan is rare. There's not to the point we've talked about. There are not a lot of Black women who have been exposed to growing up in environments where they felt it's an option to stay home, and B, in the dating scenario, you're not seeing a lot of men saying, hey, you know, and you even have to fund yourself till that man shows up.
Right.
So it's not like your future wife can just wait till you show up to pay her bills. Like, she's got to still take care of herself. So I guess my question would be, she would already need to be some ways financially solid. So I think we got to be in reality of where we are and then put forth solutions around it. But the biggest thing I had to do as a woman is that I don't call myself a professional woman. I call myself a woman who works. So that my femininity and my womanhood comes first. And it's through, when I'm in that space, it's way easier to make money as a woman now than when I was trying to do it following a man's rules. So that's the biggest thing that we have really not seen widely discussed as women, is how do I thrive in these corporate professional environments using my femininity versus think I have to do it the way I've seen men do it.
How is that? What does that look like? Because how is that possible? Because aren't you, when it comes down to it, you're competing with men in the workspace, right?
That's our biggest mistake, is we were trained to think we had to compete when we were created to be complementary. And so the second I'm just in my masculine, which, and that's why I named the book Boss Bride. And it's interesting now I'm making more money in what we consider feminine energy than trying to do it the masculine, the delegated, all that harshness of versus femininity as best is to be magnetic. So I've become more attractive of business opportunity when I was trained to pursue it. It's a different energy. But how do you do that? You got to slow down enough. Because one of the things y'all brought up, and I think it's a good dialogue, and so much of this too, it's like, I'm not at a loss right now. It's August 2023. Black women's equal pay day, y'all, was in the last 2 weeks. And so literally I can work just as hard and I'm still going to make less. That's a whole other thing. But there's a lot of different paradigms we're up against as women that don't make it easy. But I will say, as a woman, and to my sisters out there, tap into who you are as a woman and do not let what you've seen dictate who you get to be. So as a Black woman, I had to give up the habits that worked for my grandmother, the overwork, give up the habits that I saw in my childhood, and say, how can I find a new way that I get to be soft and still successful?
I like that. The thing is, both of y'all's perspective is a mature woman's perspective. This is a woman who seen that this way wasn't as advantageous, and now I'm gonna switch it up to be a different way. But that's the thing. I don't think is women, you know, that are 22 to 30, maybe 30 up to 35, that they aren't really thinking like that.
Well, let me ask you this. When did you realize that? Like, at what point in your career did that light bulb go off? Because you said you were in that space, that mindset of it was career first. So when did that light bulb go off?
Well, I mean, for me, I was a relationship girl too. So it was a gradual, but I always, and also we're filming in Atlanta. I'm born and raised here. And when I worked in media, I lived 12 years in New York. The 10 years I worked at Essence, I was living in New York. That's hustle culture. And I always knew what I didn't want, but it took me a while to find what I did want. I would see the moms. It was a hard life carrying strollers with kids up. I was like, I'm never doing this. I'm not doing this life. So I knew that I had to find examples, but I think it wasn't one moment, but it was just like, I got tired of the hard life because I wasn't naturally built to hustle. That's not my nature. It was nurtured through being in the environment and going for my professional dreams. But it was only like, well, I actually want other things that this environment won't cultivate. So I'm going to have to be willing to give up what I do know. I left New York. I left magazine industry. And I hit a reset because I knew the way I was living wasn't working. And I took what I did study and put that in the book to say, okay, I'm going to find a new way of making money that doesn't mean I have to sacrifice who I am as a woman.
And Crystal, was that your similar experience, or what was the deal with you?
My experience was totally different because I got married really early. I knew that I wanted a family, so I got married in college, and so my experience was 100% different, but it ended up in the same place because I got married to my college sweetheart. We had 2 children and I didn't work full time. I was going to mommy and me and all that kind of thing. But when I went through a divorce 13 years later, I ended up with 2 children having to figure out how to provide. And I had a husband that was the type that was like, you don't have to work. So I was not financially able. I had to hurry up. It's interesting though, because I had conversations with my colleagues who were all, when I moved here from Oklahoma to Atlanta and I started in public relations and entertainment, all my colleagues had no children and they were not married. And so I felt a lot of guilt as a Black woman to have married and had children early. I stood out like a sore thumb. And I remember feeling like my career, I moved to Atlanta when I was 28. And so by that time, so many of my peers, they were able to move to New York. They were able to I couldn't do that, especially, with little children. My children were small at the time. And so I felt a lot of guilt. And I also felt very out of place in an industry with women that had put their careers first and were soaring ahead. So I didn't really see at that point in my early 30s, I didn't really see having children and a husband. It almost was like, this is holding you back. This is why your career is not where it could be, right? So when I looked at some of my girlfriends, I actually felt that were single. Now it flip-flopped later, there was a huge flip-flop, but I felt like I was doing a disservice to, as a Black woman, you feel this push and this need to be and working in Black excellence. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to work harder. I'm really behind the ball. Right. So we get to our 40s, my children are, growing. And a lot of my girlfriends are now realizing that they are not in relationships and they can't have the time is ticking and their biological clock is ticking. And so it's interesting how, and then I had a really open conversation with 2 of my girlfriends that are in their early 40s and don't have children and have not really been in a long-term relationship. And I told them how I felt as opposed to how they felt. And it's just very different. So I think my suggestion to women is, first of all, and men, because I respect what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do know that we all have the right for our preferences. My preference was to be with a man. When I was with my first husband, and he said, you don't have to work. I will make sure that you're taken care of. I like the way that felt. So for me, when I got married again, I married a man that had the same outlook on life. I don't want you to have to work. I will make sure that you're taken care of. That's not the conversation that a lot of the men I was dating felt, but I knew that wasn't right for me. I have the right to have that preference, just like you have the right to have that preference. But I do think when we're developing our preferences, we have to understand why. And anything that's developed based in fear is a problem. And so if we're afraid of not being catered to, or you're afraid that a woman won't understand, then maybe that's some more work that you need to do and talk to more women. But if it really is just, this is what I prefer, that's fine. But I think anything based in fear or based in an inability to really explore where that is coming from is usually an immature way of, outlook.
Me personally, when I think about it, I actually, first of all, I do not like dating broke women. So I do understand women need to work. So that's just not a good experience at all. Dating a woman, even her problems, $10 to get in, what? Like it's small things become big things. I just I don't like that. But, I find that too, it's kind of weird. It's like a slippery slope, because I don't want to date a woman that's trying to build Amazon. That's not at all sexy to me. So I even noticed personally, it's just like what I found, I kind of like the woman who's in her career and she's working, but she can't wait to get off work.
She has balance.
Yes, she can't wait to get off work and have fun outside of work. That's kind of the sweet spot I found.
Yeah.
And
I don't really think that's balance. I just think that's somebody who just generally don't care that much about work. They just care about other stuff. I mean, when you think about it, anything that you prioritize is not going to be balanced. I have never had a time in my life that I was just balanced. It's like it all takes different levels of trajectory, depends on what you want to prioritize. And that woman who is just ready to get off work, she's thinking about getting off work the whole day.
Yes.
which is which is
I
cool
don't agree
to
with
me.
that. But right, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because okay, first of all, women are doing something as they're not just ladies in waiting, right? So you have to be able to enjoy your life.
Right.
And I think that there can be, I don't believe that a woman can't enjoy what she does and feel purpose behind it, but also enjoy her life and enjoy her friends and enjoy her relationships. And I would just say for me, that's what made the difference, because I was married and then I was single for a long time, right? I talked to you guys about that. I was single for a long time. And during that time, I was working. Ended up with migraines every day, went to therapy, and the therapist said, Crystal, what do you do for you? So what I did is I recreated my life to where I did have balance. I enjoy what I do, but I also enjoy riding horses. I also enjoy hanging out with my girlfriends. So I don't think that you can only be the girl that hates her work, her job, and can't wait to get off. I think that you can have a healthy, passion for doing what you do or serving that purpose, but you can also enjoy being with your family. I mean, we have to realize that as people, we are multidimensional, right? And so you can love your husband and enjoy taking care of him, but also enjoy the work that you're doing outside the home. You can enjoy being a mother. I mean, being a mother to me is the most important job I've ever done. If there was nothing else I could do in this world, it would be being Chanel and Stone's mom. However, I also enjoy what I do. I don't think we can say that people only fit into certain boxes. I do think at certain times in your life, certain things take priority. So while there is no husband, right? While there is no serious boyfriend, you would need to be enjoying your life and not just waiting around looking for him, right?
Yes, but barring, because I think if you're a woman that has kids, it's a little different.
Yeah.
So I can understand it's a certain level of urgency and income level that you want to get. But if it's just a single woman, you Metro Atlanta, I mean, how much money do you need?
Are you serious?
I'm serious. Like, how much money do you need?
It costs money to live. I mean, like
What
in the middle
world?
of the recession here, I'm like,
Do you know how much an apartment costs? Like, okay, my daughter
Yeah.
has an apartment here, right? So
Yeah.
so her rent's around $1,500 a month. Plus she has a car. Like, she works, and my girlfriend was like, "Why?" Asked my daughter's like, "Why are you working like you have two kids?" And she was like, "Do you know how much it costs for me to pay my car, my insurance?" Like, she's paying all her bills. Now, I think what can happen is you do have a lot of times, and I do acknowledge that a lot of times men are attracted to women that need them, right? And so when you have women that are, working but not quite making it, because she needs around $4,000 a month to pay all her bills. That's not easy when you're talking about this.
Now, this is the thing. I'm not talking about the women out there making 40, 50, 60, even 70, 80 grand.
What are you talking
I'm
about?
talking about the woman who is making 100, 1,000 plus. They working
Ryan.
40, 60 hours a week. Not the woman who is making 60 grand. Like, I'm not complaining about that woman. That woman is cool.
Well, it just depends.
so
'cause, like,
it
even
sounds
just
like it's
doesn't
a
want her to
cap.
make
You
a
have
lot.
a wage cap. Like,
No.
is it like
It's not a wage cap. It's just a priority cap. It's like, so this thing, when I'm
yeah,
working,
what
when I'm working is the only thing I'm working for is to be able to have a capacity for myself and my future family.
What does that mean?
That means that I'm able to my coins create rubies. I'm putting myself in a position to where my working income is going to create to where I can have passive income. I just take care of my family. The more money I can make, the more capacity I have to have more kids. Now, but it's not for material things though. It's like, so a woman, this thing, if I meet a woman and she's a babysitter and she has some 9-to-5 job and she's making 50, 60 grand, like, that's cool. But if she's trying to go above and beyond and get promotion after promotion and pretty much sacrificing her whole life for this job, I'm just not interested.
Hearing is I just want to mirror back what
Yeah.
you're. It sounds like, because the second you got to 100 plus, that's when you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And equating overwork, because it doesn't have to always.
Right.
There can be people who are passionate, women who are passionate for what they do. But underneath, one of the things I think we're talking around, we haven't really moved into, is this identity. How does she identify herself? But also the reality of how we're spending and what is your comfort level with a woman who might make more. It's one of the things that we have to talk about as a community. If Black women currently are us often sometimes out earning our partners. How does that
Mhm.
show up? It's something I talk about in the book, that how do you make sure that you don't weaponize your money as a woman? Because I think one of the fears men feel, and I'm curious for you, would you feel comfortable with a woman who was a babysitter and she still was making $150 or $1,000?
Depends
Are
on
you
that family that
comfortable
she's
with a
babysitting
woman
for.
making more?
Right.
It's not about how much money she's making. It's about how she's spending her time
He
and
just
what
wants
she's focused on.
so okay, so let me ask you this. Let me just cut through this. What if you met this woman, you
Yeah.
meet a woman, because if you
Yeah.
you could meet someone out, they could give you a brief definition of what they do, but you don't really know. You guys meet, fall in love, and then her priority becomes, and you get engaged, because we're not going to make a man our priority without him being in the place to receive that.
Mhm.
So you get engaged, you guys get married, and then you become her priority. Are you okay then, Ryan?
Yeah, of course. This is the thing. Is it likely that a woman who straight out of college, she's been conditioned to work in this way, is it likely that she's going to be able to convert and change over?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, because what I'm telling
Is that
you,
is that really
what-
happening?
yes, it is. This is why. This is how. The problem is most of us, it's not about the work. And I tell women there's this thing that I take them through called What Created Your Alpha, right? So in my book, I talk about the fact that most alpha females, that alpha was created in fear of not feeling safe. So you learn that, I learned early on that getting straight A's, right? My mom, we grew up not having much, getting straight A's, being the top of the class, that was expected because that was going to get us away from where we were. We're not that far. We're a few generations. I'm the first college graduate in my family, right? My grandmother was a postal worker. My mom was a nurse. So we're just getting out of this area where we're not struggling, where we're moving into middle and upper middle class. So most of us are that ambitious Black girl was created because she knew she had a responsibility for her family to get her to get them out of this, out of poverty to the next level. All of us, feel that. We can all relate to that. When we see things happening and we see people moving into positions of leadership like Sheree, it makes us proud because we know that that's not where we came from. So I think that we have to allow ourselves as a community to grow. And you can't just assume that because we were raised a certain way, that's how we are. My daughter has a very different experience than I did, right? Because she grew up with a mother who was an entrepreneur, who didn't work for someone. And she didn't have nights where there weren't, there wasn't a lot of food in the house. Her children will have an even different experience, but in those experiences, mindsets change, right? So her growing up in a family where even now my husband provides you want a car, I'll do this, I'll do that. There's not that fear of, I can't trust my husband, I can't allow him to provide. I think the best thing that men can do for a woman that's professional, if you love that woman, I'm not suggesting you be with someone that you're not into, but if you care about her, is to provide an environment where she feels secure and she knows that you have her back. So many times in the past, we've seen Black women that when they did trust someone, they ended up raising 2 and 3 children alone. That's not a feeling of safety and security. And that's what women crave. It's not about being gold diggers, even for the women that aren't like that. I tell men, it's not about being a gold digger. There may be some girls that interpret it that way, but at the core, a woman's core, a female's core, even if you look at the animal kingdom, when they get ready to have a baby, they want to make sure they have some place to live. Like animals, you'll see them nesting. She's preparing for her children. There's a need to feel safe. And that safety for most of us, especially if there's not a man involved, is being able to rest on the fact that we know we're able to take care of ourselves. And the higher you go up that corporate ladder, the more you're able to do that.
That motivation of wanting to operate or be successful and be great, to not have this, that's the same thing that motivates young men and women. I think
Right.
all of us were motivated, especially us that came from low income, struggling households. We've all seen those same things. And I remember Dr. Daniels, he said this. He said, in order to have success, you need to obsess. And with obsession comes neglect.
That's true.
And I think that's one of the biggest things, because even when I talk to a lot of men that are excellent providers and that bust they behind, a lot of those men admit that they can tend to neglect them of their households. And they're operating from that same place that the women are operating from. And in many ways, the women are acting, I mean, when a woman's working that hard, that's a role. She has a role aspect of a provider. Now she's in her provider bag.
It doesn't
she's
feel
out
good.
there-
I can tell you, it did not. When I was the head of household, I hated it. I did not enjoy. I can tell you right now. I remember thinking, I didn't call my ex-husband, but when I had the children, and it was them and me. And I remember thinking, this sucks. I don't like this. But I also wasn't raised in a situation as a woman that I would just sit down and cry. I knew I had to take care of my children. But I think we have to also be honest about something. I work in a male-dominated industry, right? In the entertainment industry, just like Sheree. But the men that I would interact with were managers of talent, right? So there were two options. You can either assume masculine quality so that they take you seriously, or you can move in a feminine way that makes them be condescending or overtly over sexualize you. And so what I did, because I didn't want to be sexualized, right? The music industry is notorious for, this is before Me Too, when I started working in it. So if you come in a room in your feminine energy, a lot of times the men were very, very sexual and disrespectful. Yeah. So what I did is I put up a harder front to where one of my mentors, Jan Smith, a vocal coach that everyone knows, said, Crystal, you're going to have to be a bitch. Because if you're not a bitch, men are going to take advantage of you. So I would have a guy say, oh, I'm going to hire you because you're cute. And I said, no, you shouldn't hire me because I'm cute. You should hire me because I'm going to make you money. So I have to come back at you with masculine energy in order to check that so you don't disrespect me. So in that, my work husbands were like, that's unattractive. Well, I'm either going to be unattractive and you're going to work with me, or you're going to try to sleep with me and disrespect me. So I chose the first, which was to be seen as try to be an equal, but the other side of that was not acceptable for me. That's not who I am as a woman. I'm not negating that there are a lot of girls that make that decision and they choose the other way. And I think we also have to understand why they do. There are a lot of women who made it a lot further than I did because they did give in to their feminine wiles and, had intimate relationships with men, and that did propel them forward. So we can't just say that there has been a clear space for women to be able to be in their feminine energy and be successful. That doesn't always, the door is not always open for that.
Let me ask you this. You said something that was very interesting. Very interesting. You said at one point you were the head of household. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that just means you were pretty much making
all the decisions. Money. Well, no. I meant after my divorce. So first I went from being a wife where I would just, he would take care of everything to, and I kind of liken it to, I had like a little Bichon Frise cute dog, right? So if I were just to take Chantilly and throw her out to outside where she would have to figure out her own food, she would be lost. I felt very much like that after I got divorced. I was lost. I didn't know what to do, because I had been 13 years in this situation where he was the breadwinner. So I had to reach down into my grandmother was like, this is who you are. You better get yourself together. And so I did. But it's interesting to know what men would suggest I would have done in that situation. After I went through a divorce, my ex-husband told me, go home and stay with my parents. If I did that, I probably would not have been, I guess I would have been waiting on him to come back. But if I didn't level up, open my own business and start to do that, which made me very unattractive to some men, what would be the answer to that?
That's a good question. I think that's the paradox that women face. It's like either you put all your eggs in one basket and go out there and try to find you a man, or you pretty much essentially perform as a man.
Right.
I think that's the issue. Now, the thing is, what you ladies are saying.
Sheree made a face.
But what you ladies are saying is, I'm not getting that from the women that I'm referring to. I'm not referring to the woman who's out there, she's doing what she got to do for now, and she's waiting for Prince Charming to come whisk her off her feet. I'm talking about the woman who wants to argue you down about how much she loves her job, and she wants to tell you about
women who argue
you
down?
Must be.
They're not literally arguing, but they're just defending it, and they talking about it too much, in my opinion. It's just like, this is the thing.
I don't know if y'all know that there's women that do that. They'll go on dates.
Yeah,
they lead with that. That's a problem,
issue,
right?
And that's men and women, right? So
Facts.
we definitely have experienced that as women and men who like all they talk about is work. But if you ever encounter that person, that is someone who doesn't have a healthy sense of self. So I'm hiding inside of my career, and especially I do encounter those women. So I'm not saying y'all making them up. I encounter them. They be in my DMs. I've interviewed them. And for that woman, it's always saying you have to find who you are first, because at the end of the day, dating someone, marrying somebody, you're not marrying a job.
Right.
And so you have to do that work to not hide behind for
Mhm.
both sides, because it is a detriment. It's someone hiding. And
Mhm.
to have a true intimate relationship asks me to show myself, which so much of this conversation around is how do we feel safer.
Right.
And to the women who are listening, you might have got triggered hearing Ryan talk about how I'm not dating you, sis. Is I would say, I've encountered many men, over hundreds of men who are not intimidated and who
Right.
are okay with us being professional,
Mhm.
but they don't want us to hit them over the head with our professional success. And so it is important for us, even as someone who had a very successful career, when it
Mhm.
was time to date, listen, my online profile, I would say coach in wherever Wi-Fi. I didn't try to tell you, I'd tell you how I was making recipes in the pandemic. I would tell you about me as a woman, because at the
No, they
end
like
of the
that.
day, you're not waking up to a
Right.
resume.
Right.
You're waking up to a real person. So you have to not hide behind your resume as a woman. And even for me dating, the more I allow myself to be seen as a woman, the better quality of men I've dated.
That's what we did. Look, this was
Yeah.
the dating tips
Yeah, I agree.
for the professional ladies. So let's
Yes.
get into some of that.
Wait, before we get started, I want to
Yo.
give a shout out real quick. So shout out
Let's
to
do
Andre. Andre always coming through with the super chats. He says, "Can we get 10 super chats, Andre?" I'm with you on that one. Don't forget, guys, all the super chats up until we get to 3,500 will go to soundproof in the studio, guys. I know you hear that sound.
Yeah.
I looked at y'all's surveys. We had over 70 surveys sent in. A lot of people were saying that we need to improve that sound, guys. So sending those super chats. Shout out to KN, one of our day one members. KN says it's expensive to be a woman, period.
Period.
And
On
when
it,
dating,
sis.
even more so. I never spend as much money as when I was dating. That's because you're going out with the wrong men, KN. You got to get your dates paid for, all right? So
No, she's talking about getting ready for the
I
date.
know. I know.
You have a section in your wardrobe just for your dating outfit.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Mm.
So
Ladies said
we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about.
They said they didn't do it for us.
They,
They said they do it for them.
that's what they said. That's the claim.
It's not for us. They said.
So shout out to Practition Her. I like that. Practition Her. She says that's the reason I'm getting a doctorate, to have passive income and work towards financial freedom and possibly fire. FIRE. Can't do that on minimum wage.
She said she wants to
Uh-oh.
fire.
Oh,
Okay.
Now that's doctorate and passive income, sis.
that
That
okay.
usually don't.
Yeah,
Hey,
no.
I trust you.
Yeah.
I ain't
You
gonna
got
lie.
it, sis.
Doctors and attorneys. That's usually where I got a hard. The doctors and attorneys.
That's really the.
That's what it's look. That's where I put. Ooh.
She said
So
fire.
look, let's go ahead and talk about. Look, shout out to KN. She said, "I never spend money at a date. I only date traditional men." I love that,
Listen,
KN.
Yeah.
I love that. Shout out to
Shout out.
traditional
I
men.
mentioned traditional
Say
men.
this.
What's up?
Let's
What's up?
talk about the money in dating, because I don't, right? I
Mhm.
always expect you to pick me. Like
Mhm.
I like to be treated well,
Mhm.
but it is an investment of time and money to position
is.
yourself in the dating market. And I'm pro, particularly for the women who might be, because when we say a full life as a woman, it's not just I might have a full life. It's not just working. I might be spending time with family and friends. You might be in organizations, volunteering. So I am very pro online dating. I'm pro paying for the upgrades. So when I was dating, I paid for my Bumble upgrades. I could see.
Ooh.
It was very good for my little, my dating confidence to see it was already over 1,000 men who would swipe right on me. So I could pay for that.
1,000 men.
You could see the beeline. I could see, not all of it wasn't worth, but I could choose who already. So I'm definitely for investing. If we're going to spend money on doctorates, then we should invest in a great dating coach, in some great dating books, in some training, in some great outfits, in some great undergarments, all the things you can do to best position yourself.
Right.
Because most of us spent the time to go get degrees or certifications or to up level ourselves professionally. So I'm very pro up leveling your personal life too.
Yeah.
Getting a therapist, paying for
Therapy.
all the things that make you as exciting, magnetic, and attractive as you can be.
I like that too. Let me ask y'all a
Invest.
question. Is this misogynistic? Because this is what I think.
Yeah, we
Let me ask you No, because when I hear, and shout out to Practitioner Her, says she's going to get her doctorate.
Yes.
But I'll be real.
Here we go.
When I hear a woman is going to go get additional schooling,
Especially that PhD.
paid PhD, masters, or she says that she is not pretty much that's additional school. I forgot what the other one is. What else is outside of additional school? It's like, but anyway, when I hear that one, I immediately think, you know what? She need a man. That's what I immediately think.
Wait,
that you said that. Okay.
You don't need a doctor. You need something else.
Right.
I really do think that, because I'm like, why
That
would you
is
go back to why would
crazy.
you go back to school and
Man.
you know,
Just, I mean,
28 years old?
but you do realize that there are married women
Yeah.
that are pursuing doctorates. I
Yes.
actually know couples that have doctorates together. Like, you do realize there are women that are married, and I just okay. If you just want a woman that's
You want me to call the exorcism of his
if
mood?
that- I think everyone has a right to their preference. So if you want to date a girl that works at Waffle House, just say that. It's okay. We're fine with that. No. Seriously, but there are. I don't want this conversation to leave out the fact that there are so many. First of all, we do talk about the fact that there are more female, Black females graduating from college, but there are a lot of amazing, intelligent, well-educated Black men that are doing the same thing, and a lot of them are couples, because a lot of times it works best when you date your equal, or you're equally yoked. So let's don't act like there aren't couples out there graduating together, doing things, pursuing, egging each other on. Like, this is
No.
It's exceptions to the rule. Like,
correct.
It's exceptions to the rule, especially, for example, because I see what Ryan's, because y'all understand the way.
I'm not talking about the intentional, woman who's working with her man and they trying to figure out what the next step, or the woman who says she's always wanted to pursue this doctorate in this special field, a lawyer. I'm not talking about that woman. I'm talking about the woman who graduated school. She's working. She's having some relationship issues. She doesn't know what to do next. She wants direction. She wants the community. She probably wants a family.
And she's going even bigger in her career.
Yeah.
She's going even bigger in her career.
I think you're making assumptions and speculating, because two things can be true. When most people go through, I'll speak to women, when women go through heartache, a lot of times it does make us lean into what we can control, right? Because women, for the most part, are waiting to be chosen, right? At least to be married. And we can definitely, be the ones who choose for other things to happen. But we're talking about marriage. A lot of times women are waiting to be chosen. So what you can control is what you're doing in that space, in that time. So pursuing education is an admirable thing. I don't want any women to listen to Ryan and think that just because they're pursuing their doctorate, that means they need to get some, which you can have both. You may want your doctorate and to get some, but I'm just saying that assumption is really unfair, right? Because while you're single, you should be doing everything you can to better yourself. My only problem is, as women, we need to also value and encourage our sisters to get therapy, to enjoy their lives. There's nothing wrong with getting your doctorate, but are you also having healthy social activities? Are you also enjoying self-care? Are you doing those other things that make you seem happy, show that you're happy, so that when a man sees you at Publix, you don't look like you're stressed out with your edges gone.
See, Crystal, I like that. That's the thing, that if she was investing in those things,
right?
I'm rooting for her. But I do think that there are women out there who use upping their level, upping their career, and using school as escapism for addressing those various.
I don't think it's escapism. I don't think it's escapism.
Watch this, Crystal. I'm gonna actually reference back.
Okay.
Because there was actually a point in your career, if I remember the episode right, where you went even harder at work to kind of get away from some of the stresses.
I was heartbroken. And like I just said, a lot of times you lean into what you can control. So after going through a divorce and being heartbroken, I didn't go out there and get under. Again, there's two types of women, right? So I didn't go get under a bunch of men to get over it. I leaned into what I could control, which was to invest in my career, which I knew would give me a return on my investment. But what I acknowledge is that that's not a healthy way of dealing with pain. You can't substitute obsessing in one area to get over something else. I think all of us do that. Right. So where a man may go have sex with a lot of women, right? That doesn't get him over that pain either. But if you look at, that's something that we know women do. Drake has records. I'm so proud of you. She getting in her bag.
Right.
What's Vito got the record. Get your credit up. Women, a lot of times when they get hurt, they do lean into figuring out how to better themselves when it comes to their finances. And finances is something that we often use as a value system. That's a part of
Right.
that's a toxic issue in our community specifically.
It's
Yep.
our country. The United States,
Right.
we're built on the value. But one thing before we move on, I think this doctorate or dating conversation, it's got to be right? Because to your
Mhm.
point, I think it's as someone who has a Black woman therapist, a Black woman primary doctor, a Black
Mhm.
woman OBGYN, like I'm so grateful that Black women have went hard because the reality that we need more Black men and women
In
in
those
professional spaces because we
Mhm.
know our care is different when we have people in power who look like us. So I'm pro it. Now to my ladies who do choose to up level our careers, is if you do desire ultimately partnership, if you do desire love, I'm a relationship girl. I'm probably been in constant relationships because I love to love. And I told myself, no matter what, my longest I can ever be single is 3 years max. Other than that, girl, we dating. So for anyone who is going for a degree, don't stop dating. I think what you're saying is so much of this is just a balance. So, and I have been that woman who used work to cope, right? It was a hiding place until it was time for me to say, okay, it's time to put myself out there and enjoy companionship. But another thing we got to talk about, if getting a doctorate sounds more easy than dating, then something's off with dating.
And that does. I'm not gonna lie.
So
For me,
let's talk
that
about
definitely
that.
seemed for parts of my life, pursuing a doctorate did seem easier because it's something again I can control.
Yep.
It's based in fear, but I think that and I was talking to a group of women at the Black Writers Weekend. And I said, it's interesting how we view relationships. So if you want to win at something, right? And you say you're a basketball player and you miss a shot, you don't stop shooting, right? You just rebound, come back and shoot again. But for me, so often I'll acknowledge that when I was dating, when I would get hurt, I would just retreat, right? And I would retreat much longer than Sheree, because it was just, I love so hard that it was hard for me to. So I had to learn how to look at dating and relationships like my self-value and self-worth wasn't tied up in a situation. And that's difficult to do because it's easy to, black and white is easy. It's the colors that sometimes get us hurt. And I've heard people say, I can't get heartbroken again. I have girlfriends that say that are professional, and it's just like, I just don't want to get heartbroken. I can take these bumps and bruises from clients and people in the corporate space because that's not going to hurt my core. But when a man that I've invested in and I've given my heart to, when he crushes it, that's a different type of pain that I can't control.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why we have a lot of people that would rather pursue that doctorate or would rather, open that business, start a whole company, Black women, than actually dealing with the fact that I have to be able to rebound. I have to be able to know that I can lose in love and I'll be okay and I can start over again. That's the only way that you will win, is to be willing to take the losses.
So I like that you was open with us and shared that, because I think it is, it's exceptions to every rule. It's some people out there that's been very intentional, like this is the next step for my life. There's other people that's like, hey, maybe school right now is a little bit easier for me to address some of these issues I had in the past. And I would just say, you just got to make sure that you know where you at with it is my thing, because I do think it's a lot of women who aren't really looking at where they at emotionally before they go about making these, these different decisions. But my thing, I'm just very selfish, and it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with the amount of money a woman makes. To me, it's really just about how talented and dynamic women are. I think this thing, if you know you got that much talent, and you know you got that much talent, what do you think about these corporate companies? They know that too. They know how educated women are. They know Black women, the fastest group of growing entrepreneurs. They know about all these women excelling in the school. So this is why they want you in their workforce. This is why they want you.
That's also why you should want us to be your wife.
Yes, but the thing is, as long as you have that mindset that you got now, which is, hey, I'm doing this until I find my Prince Charming. But I just generally think that the average woman, that's not what they're thinking.
Well,
That's not, it's not in none of the media that's been put out. It's not in none of the music that's been put out. It's not in none of the podcast content. Is women that are saying, hey, this is what I did do professionally. This is what I would have liked to done, or this is where I am now. Is mostly saying, hey, you wrong, Ryan, for not wanting to date professional women.
Well, I think it's the way that you're saying it, but I think in order for there to be women being receptive to that, you would also have to have men saying, I look forward to taking care of a family. I look forward to being a provider. And I don't hear a lot of that either. I think that in the music and everything, I mean, we don't have a balance in music. So we don't have a lot of great examples of what relationships look like. We have a lot of, I'm going to take advantage of you and I'm going to take advantage of you on both sides. I'm going to get his bag and he's going to get this. But that's not real. That's not what we're talking about here. We're trying to have a healthy discussion about what this should look like and how do we heal these issues. But we have to acknowledge, where does that come from? That comes from women growing up seeing their mom struggle. I don't want to struggle like my mom. I don't want to be heartbroken like my mom. So I'm going to get my bag. So if we hear men like yourself saying, you know what, I look forward to, Ryan, I would challenge you. I'm going to challenge you, right? I think when I talk to women, I say, as opposed to talking about what you don't want, let's talk about what you do want. Anyone who starts a conversation with what they don't want is operating in fear, right? They're not ready. So why don't you say, I cannot wait to meet the love of my life. I cannot wait to protect her. I cannot wait to provide for her. I cannot wait to make her happy. You say that and you walk in that space, I promise you will meet women that will start to respond to you in that way. What you're hearing are women that there are so many men out here saying, oh, you got to be able to make your own money because I'm not going to pull the weight alone. So that creates this environment of, oh, I'm going to get mine. But if you operate from manhood, and manhood is all about protection, manhood, and it's not just financial, it's also emotional. I can't wait to build a family with an amazing Black woman. I promise you, you're going to, what you start to receive is going to be different. For me, I had to say, I remember I wrote on my vision board, and I had never wrote this before, I want to be spoiled. I had never had the gumption to say that I wanted a man to spoil me. When I said those words and I started operating in what I want as opposed to what I don't want. I don't want trifling. I don't want cheating. All I'm doing is bringing that to me. When I started saying, I want a man who I enjoy, I want my best friend, I want him to spoil me. When I tell you it showed up, I'm not saying that it's perfect, but when we operate in what we don't want, we tend to attract that. So I would just encourage you, because I know that you're a positive guy and you're speaking out of something that is something that you've seen that you don't want to encounter. So the best way to not encounter that is to speak to what you can do. And when you do that, I promise you, the queen that you eventually attract, because you're probably not ready for her now. when it's time for her to show up, she will be a woman that is ready to receive the protection and providing of a king, and she will act like a queen.
And that's actually, I would listen. That's good game for everybody up in here, and that's actually relevant to what we talk about now. These dating tips. Do we got anything else we need to address?
Yeah, just real quick. So shout out to Bree. She says, "Leave space for a man." Bree, I'm with you. That's actually that might be my sister. That is my sister name, by the way. Might be supporting the bro. Shout out to Bree and shout out to Vanita. Vanita just out the kindness of her heart, she sent over the 20-piece for the soundproof. And Vanita, look, as soon as we get that sound, we're gonna send you a private message. Thank you so much, Vanita. We need that.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you guys to stay tuned. I told y'all we got something very special.
Yes.
For all my people sticking in here to the end. Very, very,
and
very
real
special.
quick, guys, y'all know we like to show love to our guests and these beautiful experts and young ladies. So shout out to Sharia. I'm gonna go ahead and drop her profile in there. Make sure y'all give her a follow ASAP. And shout out to one of our favorites, Crystal Jordan, on her return. I'm gonna go ahead and drop her Instagram in there too. So make sure you follow these ladies and just show them love. And go ahead and hit it, Tyshawn.
So let's talk about the dating dynamics as well, because I think you talked about this a little bit in your book too. On your end, Sharia, you talked about, kind of how the financial dynamics kind of play out, and check this out. I want to know this. Let me just get straight into it with this question here. Do you think a woman should date a man or could successfully date a man any less successful than she is?
Absolutely. When I was on Steve Harvey's show, he asked a very similar question and specifically was asking around, as professional women, how can we navigate that, right? And first, because let's be very clear about what you mean by successful, because what I interpreted that, and let me know if I heard you right, was boiling down to, are you more professionally established and does she make more money? Is that what you meant when you said successful?
Yeah. So pretty much when you say professionally established, you mean pretty
You
much
mean
where
like
he is
she
in his
might have
career.
like a more public career. She might have more like a cooler title or
Yes,
something. Is that what you
yes,
mean?
yep.
A cooler title.
It's like
she make a-
status and money, pretty much. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we live in a world that tells you that's what your identity is. And for any woman who is listening, don't miss the love of your life because he didn't come packaged and pre-packaged. Because also you got to understand this. And when you stand into who you are as a woman and you are in your feminine, you're meant to nurture. So you'll bring out the best in your man anyway. So it's not even how you met him. Every man I've ever dated has left me better than what he found me because that's who I am, who God made me to be. He's going to leave better because that's who I'm called to be. So I would say absolutely. And for women, part of it is us being clear about who we are as women, that we don't miss his value. There's so much more value to every last one of us than simply what's your job title, how much you make. And so
Right.
one of the sections I did put in the book was how do you spot a career supportive guy? So how do you see the traits of a man who isn't intimidated, who's okay if you go to get that doctorate, who's okay with your big job title? And so it takes a man who's first secure in who he is and know his value is so much more than his bank account to see the value in what he brings to the table. Because as a woman who has been okay to take care of myself, I still need men in my life, and not just romantically. I came back from a trip recently. I spoke at a conference in Barbados, came back, it was a lizard in my kitchen.
I remember I was on the phone with you.
You're right. And I was like, I got a call. I wasn't getting that lizard out.
She really was like losing complete like
You
conversation.
didn't tell all my
Lizard.
That's good. That's how I like my women. Scared of lizards,
Scared of lizards.
scared of spiders, scared of bugs. So I can come over there and smash them up.
Who cared what I had in the bank account or what my job was? At the end of the day,
It's a lizard.
and that's the way as a woman, like I want to be in my house in my feminine, because if anything go off at night, it's a bump downstairs. Guess who's not planning to go down those stairs? Me. So, but it also means I have to show up that way in my dating scenario so that I'm clear that there's so many other things that a man brings up to the table other than just what his job title. And truly a man who is in his provider energy, he's going to make sure we all right. And so, and I think sometimes the other thing I said was not to collapse job title with financial security, because you'll encounter men who might not have the sexier job title who are solid. The plumbers who are the blue collar workers who have put their UPS dollars to work, have done things, military men. There's so many men who might not have this flashy, might not wear a suit to work every day, who still bring so much to the table. So I think particularly it's not just smart, but it's also reality that don't just look for he's got to match me on a resume, because, and I'll be all the way. I told you this on the phone too. I think it's important. This is a time to get real. I've dated the guy who had the pedigree, who worked at the sexy company, who had gone to a sexy college, lost his job, who he calling to borrow money. My boyfriend at the time.
Wow.
Me.
So should you not support a guy who falls into that spot?
We going there?
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Because that's a good point.
I mean, because you date.
So
because this is a guy who's not a perpetual loser. He was successful. Because you said he was at a certain place in his career, right?
I said he worked at a sexy shop.
Okay.
I worked at a sexy company, but financially he wasn't solid.
Okay.
But should there ever
But
be a
was he
time?
ambitious? What did he have character traits of somebody who had the potential to get there?
No.
Okay.
But because he looked good on paper, I didn't notice the character gap because, he works here. He went to this college. So I equated that to mean he was solid.
Okay.
Because he struggled for months. We both were laid off in the recession a month apart. I bounced back sooner than he did. And he borrowed money from me for more than a year. And not consistently, but I'm saying over more than 2 years, he was borrowing money.
He was cashing out.
And in transparency, let's keep it all the way real. He wasn't the first Black man to ask me to borrow money.
Okay, so wait a minute.
Oh, you've been a sugar mama out here.
He was the first man. The first men were family, right? We gonna talk about what the dynamics in Black family. We gonna go there.
How serious was the
This
relationship?
is my boyfriend.
So this is my
like
thing.
our mamas. I know his mama. He know my mama. Like.
That's a poll.
Wait, no. First, let me see if Crystal, because y'all getting all this money. I'm trying to figure out who's gonna benefit. Who's gonna benefit from all this money y'all getting?
The money for them, not for us. We don't ever get the money.
That's what I'm see. That's my
Yeah, the
thing.
money's not
See
for us.
me, see Crystal. I want you to
Yeah.
tell us because me personally,
Mhm.
when I'm putting up when I got my money and I got my lady,
Mhm.
she lose her job, I'm taking care of her.
Mhm.
But a woman, you also getting your money.
Mhm.
Boyfriend lose his job. I think women got a problem with that. So let me ask
Like,
you.
get his ass out of here.
Yeah, right. That's my
And I-
point.
and I
So
love
So the
him.
money is clearly not for us.
Should have
Well,
been
I
more
love-
ambitious, player.
I
You should have been more ambitious, player.
I would say for me, and this is just Crystal, a boyfriend is different than a husband.
Amen.
So
That's not for you, just that's for
yeah.
every woman.
It should, but you know, I also think that people have to create their own dynamics, right? So I am definitely petrified of lizards and everything but there are a lot of women that are not. And I think that the problem is we all see a certain cookie cutter situation and we think that that's what we should have. But I feel like people should find what works for them. There are women who are like, I'm okay splitting the bills. I'm okay. And that's fine. That's fine if that's what you want. But I do think that what more women should do is make sure that they know what they want. Because I hear women say you want a man who makes 6-7 figures. I heard 7 figures, right?
Yeah.
Men, I have a lot of friends that make 7 figures, and most of them do not have time to invest in their relationships, right? They expect certain things. So I just think that a lot of times as women, you have to do more than just look at the outer appearance.
Right.
For me, I am not funding a boyfriend's life if he loses his job. I also don't want to date, and I never really have dated the man that would ask. No, I mean said that I have dated a guy that did ask me, and he immediately was kicked to the curb. But I tend to date, like I said, I speak provider, and that's what I align with. So when I did have a guy that asked me for money, but to me, if you ask me for money and we're dating, I no longer look at you like you could be a provider. And I also wouldn't date men that were struggling. And there are numerous reasons that men can struggle. It's the attitude. So a man that I would be interested in, if he was going through it, he wouldn't ask me for the money. He may tell me about it and we would talk about it, but he would figure it out. I don't want a man that's going to be like sitting on the couch. For me, Crystal, do you mind if let me hold something? I got to figure this out. My mom always told me you date ambitious men more than the money, because money can come and go. But the ambition and the need to provide is what I'm attracted to. That's what I respect. And so I would not want a man that would do that.
So
I
so
think
let me
I don't
ask
think that's
this.
unique. I think most women are probably on the right track.
Yeah.
And we can drop a poll. What's the poll, by the way?
I want to know, should you provide any financial assistance or support?
But you have to differentiate between husband
Right.
and boyfriend.
Boyfriend or
you-
higher? Or
So just while you're dating.
Yeah, and
While
one
you're
of the
dating.
reasons I wanted to tell my truth of, dating a mistake and that red
Should
flag
women
should
be
women,
more specific? We want that's a poll for
because it's
women.
a shame that a lot of women I've encountered have
Mhm.
carried
I
that
know
shame of
lots
like,
of
oh
women.
my gosh. And for me, and I mean, this man went on to before hadn't paid me back $1 and
Mm.
asked my dad for his blessing for us to get married, because it was okay for him too to borrow money from me and not pay me back, which was
Mhm.
to her point. It wasn't about the money; it's the character.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, is that the type of man who, if things pop off, I can trust that you're gonna cover me and a
Yeah.
family. And it's hard. You talk about wanting women to be feminine, but that requires us feeling safe and covered.
Mhm.
And that does include not just financially. So it's not about whether in a
Mhm.
dire situation, but are
Mhm.
you the type of man who will step up?
Yeah.
So I've got a guy in my family. Actually, no, one of my life coaches. I talk about this guy all the time. He told me straight up, he has one of his closest friends ran into some financial issues in his relationship. And he told me, and he told him, these guys, they're married. All of these brothers are married. He told him, he said, you better not tell her what you going through. In fact, you need to borrow some money, which is what he needed. You come to me first before you come to your wife.
Mm.
You borrow that money from me before
That's a
you
good
ever
man.
ask before you ask your wife for anything, come to me first. If I ain't got it, I'm gonna go to somebody else to get it for you,
Mhm.
because you do not want your wife having that thought or that like losing that trust in you in this area,
That's what it is.
this specific area.
Mhm.
And we talking about, this is an issue for, when you're dating, but this is still an issue for men when they're married. So my question is, do y'all even think it's okay to provide any financial support in marriage to your husband if that were to, happen?
I would. I mean, but at this point, we're a team, right? I mean, It's funny because I mean, I wouldn't run into that problem because of the way my husband's situation is set up, but
Good husband.
but I would because we're a team at this point. So I feel like, and I also trust the man that he is. I know that he's never going to. He wants to provide for me at the highest level. So I want to be a great compliment to him. But we're a team at this point.
Would you
It's
look
not
at
the
him
same.
differently?
I wouldn't look at him differently because again, I know the man that he is.
Wait,
I
wait.
wouldn't look at him differently.
But
I
what
wouldn't.
about I get that husband. I get that because I'm still stuck on this
And the
boyfriend
dating
thing.
is no.
But what about if you ran into financial hardship? Would you expect your boyfriend to chip in?
You know what? I wouldn't expect it, but I would always date men that would.
See, that's the problem. And see, that's what I'm saying.
What is the problem?
The
Ryan?
problem is that I can't. This is the thing. I can't go out there and say, "Hey, this is how much." Like, because a woman working and making all this money is no benefit to me.
It is.
Think about
though.
that.
If you marry her,
No. If you married, but even in dating, if a man is dating a woman seriously, pre-engagement, and his woman, just a girlfriend, goes into some hardship, that man is going to be expected to financially contribute. So now you tell me if it's the opposite, if the foot was on the opposite end, I wouldn't be looking for it, but I'm just saying if the foot was on the opposite end and we're seriously dating and I run into some financial hardship, I can't expect all of that work you doing to provide me any level of benefit.
Ryan, I just want to ask you, because we just finished sharing with you that you should show up and provide her energy. And now you're saying that in case I don't, do you want
I'm
the
saying
woman to feel? But
not
you
me
can't have it
specifically.
both.
Not me specifically.
You just said no, Ryan. You just said it's not benefiting me.
You want
as an example. When I say me, I mean a single man.
Because men and women aren't, from my experience, you don't see us as meant to be the same. Yet you want equal treatment. You want it to be the same both ways.
No. I was being facetious. I don't expect women to actually
you just
contribute.
said my problem, Ryan, is what you just said. It's not benefiting me.
Yeah,
it's not benefiting me.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically. So I'm gonna add context to it. Actually, there are some slight benefits actually. Because
Thank you.
A lot of benefits.
There's all benefits. Like for example, one, I literally cut women off if your toes are not done. Okay. So like if you're really like
everything both goes back to them.
Your toes looking kind of crazy. I would look at that and I'll just be thinking, oh, this is about to end right now. And the thing about it is, the level of maintenance that a woman typically has. Let me tell you, her maintenance, her hair, her nails, her feet, her skin. She got a personal trainer. All of that is usually absolutely in correlation with the amount of money she's able to produce. Because chicks who are distressed and are not able to really produce any money, everything is just a complaint. They probably even have bad diets.
But you're talking about severely broke women.
No, but think about it. Because and again, that's the paradox, right? Because you're right. Severely broke women, yes. But there's the women that's in, because most women are not like six-figure chick, like women. That's not most women. Most women are like in that $40,000 to $80,000 range.
This is what I'm saying, guys.
Most women.
Listen, Chris, I understand what you're saying. All I'm saying is, don't expect me to value a woman working to value a woman's working. That's what I'm saying. Just don't expect me to value that.
I guess my issue,
like
Ryan,
her money isn't your money.
Because at the end of the day, it's not this thing. It's solely for her. So it's just not. So her money is and what she does as a career is not very important to me.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I guess I'm missing the fact that if you are in love with someone, you should just want them to be happy.
Oh
right?
yeah, of course.
And if they're passionate and they feel like they found their purpose, then it's really not about you. It's really more about the fact that I love her and I'm supporting her, and this is what makes her happy. This is what she's excelling in. I'm proud of her. No, we
on the same page about that. Yeah, of course.
I just want to make because you just keep going back to the fact that the job, but if she enjoys it and you love her, then as long as there's balance and there's room for you, what is the problem?
I do want to add one thing.
It will be no problem in that case. It would be no problem.
High benefit that I don't want us to miss of a woman who is financially solid, because often we hear network is net worth, but truly net worth is self-worth. And so when you encounter someone
good.
who has high self-worth, often a high net worth will come with that. Someone who's invested. You talk about someone coming healing and whole. If over 70% of Black households have a father and mother who are not married and together in the house, so you're already dealing with that reality in the dating pool. So a woman who's invested in therapy to heal her, good therapy costs money. Looking great costs money, like all these things that cost money. So a woman who's invested in herself, there is value to you as the man who date her because she bet on her first. So when you show up to partner with her, you're getting a high quality woman who saw value in herself, and she didn't wait till someone else saw the value to invest in herself.
Also, you would be sure that she's with you because she wants to be and not because she needs to be. Because I know a lot of women who are not high earners who choose their relationships based on need. And for me, that's a bit of freedom that myself and a lot of my girlfriends have, is that if I'm dating you, it's because I really enjoy you. Like if I'm giving you time to date, that means I really, really enjoy your company. I didn't choose any dates because of food. I can feed myself. I don't need you to take me to dinner. I had a girlfriend who I was a publicist, and she didn't really have a career. And she told me, Crystal, you look for clients like I look for guys. So I just need a guy to pay my bills, so any guy would do that was willing to do that. Now, I don't think the guys knew, because women are very persuasive when we want to be. But I think in order for you to know that a woman is with you because she truly enjoys you, she would have to have some level of independence.
Yes, guys. I'm saying career oriented. I'm not saying it's not about how much money they making. They could be broke and they could be running a nonprofit where they only can pay themselves $2,000 a month. Like I'm saying career oriented. It's the hours and focus. It's not about
wasn't benefiting him. He just
no.
That
was a hypothetical situation. Hypothetical situation.
What? That's a hypothetical island that does not exist, though.
Right.
Because it does. A woman who it doesn't impact you or any man. Hypothetically, any woman who has high income, it does benefit the man.
This is what I'm saying. Women make money for themselves. Men make money for their future and the family they're gonna have to provide for. That's what I'm saying. So if I'm dating somebody seriously, if I'm protecting somebody, it really is. If they're girlfriend or above, you know good and well, you would expect that man to cover whatever holes are missing. Whereas on the opposite end, if it's the other shoes on the other foot, it's no expectation. Like if I go broke, if I got a girlfriend, I go broke today, I'm just like, I'm asking Tyshawn for money, not her.
No, and that's what I actually learned in that conversation with my coach. Because like, even if your woman got a check, it's like a reserve account that you are ashamed to dig in.
Yep.
Like it's a reserve account that as a man, you have no business ever putting your hands into. And if you do, it is a level of failure that's associated with it. So really all the money that you guys have, we don't even want to have
that's
any
a masculine man.
That's the
but
time,
there are
that's
a
the
lot
term
of men
provider.
who have not tapped into provider energy, who don't come to the table like that.
And a lot of those men are attracted to alpha females, because that's what I was talking to some girlfriends, because a lot of times the experience that Sheree talks about is very common. Because I think when you see, there are men that feel like you, like, well, she's got all this going on, there's no space for me. There's other guys that say she has all this going on, that means I don't have to. She could be like a workhorse. Like she can benefit me, not just with money. I've had guys that want to date you because of positioning, right? I can get next to this person.
I've heard of that
So
before.
So I think that often I told in my book, I said, no one likes to jump high fences but dogs. And so a lot of times alpha females will attract men that are users because they see her and we're nurturing. That she can build a business, that she's business savvy. A lot of men are attracted to that for the wrong reasons.
That's why Sheree was over here putting out that cash. She was over there dropping that cut.
No, she was trying to be a nurturer, but it just wasn't.
No,
it was the wrong.
I was, and this was talk about it. So part of that was being raised by a single mom with a brother in the house. My version of what a woman was mothering. So I didn't get to experience my mother as a wife. And so I didn't understand how much that imprinted on me. So when my boyfriend at the time came asking me for money, it didn't feel different than my brother asking my mother for money. But that's his mama. I'm not this man's mama. Right. But the red flag the bell didn't immediately go off because I had been raised in ways to be in my masculine from seeing my mom as a single mother in her masculine energy.
And a lot of times as
Wow,
moms,
so-
we look at boys like I have a son and a daughter. My son does not ask me for money at all, ever. My daughter, it's not quite the same. But I did not want to raise my son to be, excuse my French, a bitch. I wanted my son to be a provider. So I made sure that things weren't quite the same. I didn't parent them the same. I don't believe in parenting children the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I knew that he would have to be a head of a household. And as a result, and he was like, 14 years old, taking girls on dates, thinking he had to pay for everything. I was like, hold on, you don't have to pay. But he understood that. But I know that a lot of times I was fighting against the fact that a lot of Black moms, especially single moms, baby their sons and do that inappropriately. So when I had a guy I was dating tell me one time, well, my mom worked a full-time job and took care of the house and cooked and cleaned, so you can do the same thing.
Wow.
I immediately, he and I, obviously we're not aligned, but there are a lot of men that saw that, and that's the example of a Black woman that they see, because they think, well, my mom did it, so they don't think there's anything wrong with asking a career woman for something, because they've been taught to rely on Black women.
That's what you do. Man, let me tell y'all, there's 440 people up in this chat right now. We even got the celebrities up in the chat. Shout out to Dr. Stacey J up in here.
Hey,
Oh, Dr.
Stacey.
Stacey J.
Stacey.
Go ahead and join the membership.
Right.
Stacey J,
Hey, Stacey,
okay?
hey.
And listen,
Stacey.
y'all send those super chats over. Okay, so so we can go ahead and get these questions answered by these wonderful women on the set here. Y'all see?
Yes, and do me a favor, guys, because I want to give a shout out real quick. We had a new member join. I'm trying to find that member real quick. It was Jess. Shout out to
Yes.
Jess. Shout out to Jessa Green. Jess A.
Welcome,
Green.
welcome.
We appreciate you. And shout out to Larry Love Jr. 82. Larry Love always showing love. And don't forget, all the super chats is going to our soundproofing fund of $3,500. Guys, we're about 450. So what does that make? That means I'm bad at math. We still need a little bit over 3,000,
We need
guys.
more.
All
We
right.
need-
Which is
So
why
let's-
you need a professional woman.
because she ain't gonna give us no money.
Right,
No,
right.
but she's gonna be
No
good
one
at
do
math.
that.
But she's gonna be good at math, and she's gonna handle your books.
That's a
Right?
good
Come on,
question.
You motivated.
You missed the
When you leave
blessing.
the
You
house,
keep
you gonna
missing the
leave out
blessing.
smiling.
She need to count how many
Right.
times we having sex every week. That's what she needs to count. So shout out to Larry Love. I think most of us fear wasting time with someone.
Oh my
I think it's some fear there. And that's the hardest part of relationships. That's why I just focus on my purpose and goals. You know what? Larry sounds like he needs to speak to you ladies. He says, what's a good age in your opinion to marry, and why that age? You know what? I am very curious. I've never asked a woman that. And we'll start with Crystal first. What do you think is a good age for a man and a good age for a woman to settle down?
And why?
Okay, I in my answer is probably not going to be great, because I don't believe there's a number to it. I believe that, I got married at 20. That obviously was not the right time, but I don't think it's because of my age. It was because I didn't know who Crystal was. Crystal was dealing with all types of issues. She hadn't gotten over the fact that her father left. She was dealing with trying to be, perfect for her mom, and because her mom was partial to her brother, so she had to be the strong one that got straight A's. So there was so much wrong with Crystal that she did not understand at 20. It took me to get into my 30s to really understand. But I think everyone's self-actualization happens at a different time. I think the same thing is true for men. I don't think there's an age that you can put on things. I think that people's experiences, and when they actually come into their own, really, in understanding who they are. I interviewed a young guy earlier today who was, I think, 35, and he had a clear understanding of why he wanted to be married. So I would say that was awesome. But then there are some 35-year-olds who are, caught up waiting on the freight train, and they should not get married. So I think you have to really understand who you are and understand why you want to be married, right? I don't think if you're a woman that wants to be married because you get to wear a big pretty dress and it's a special, that's the wrong reason. When you really understand who you are, what you're willing to give, because most people don't understand marriage is about serving on both sides. Most women I talk to, it's like, I want him to do this. And I'm like, what are you willing to give? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to be uncomfortable about? And then people get quiet. I think men understand sacrifice a little bit more. But I think overall there is the understanding that marriage for both people is going to be a sacrifice and it's going to be a commitment. So I think once you have a full understanding of who you are, not who your friends are, not who Instagram tells you to be, and you understand that you really do want partnership and you're ready to bring yourself and serve in a relationship, then that would be the right time. For someone who's saying her money is not mine, I don't have access to her money, this may not be the right time. I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm giving you a hard time.
No, it's all good. It's all
Giving
good.
you a hard time. But no, seriously, it really is about when you're ready to serve and when you're really ready to do that. And I don't think we're able to do that until we've worked out, who we are. And I think that happens at different times in life for people.
I think that's good.
So wait, what was the age though? So you're saying it's no age?
I think it's different for everybody, right? So because I think that depending on there are people who haven't worked through their trauma well into their 40s. There are 50-year-old men that really haven't had a chance to get quiet with themselves. What I will say is if you haven't healed, right, from a past relationship, be that with a parent, be that with a ex, or even with, someone who had a great impact on your life, you're not ready to be in a relationship, because a relationship with a significant other will act as a mirror, and you will see all those areas that you're not mature in, that you're still hurting. For me, I got married to my first husband and I was still heartbroken over my father leaving. So I was not ready. You have to really be able to have healed. A lot of times, like I talked about earlier, men will go from woman to woman to woman. My first book, I interviewed strippers and men. It was interesting, but there were so many men that I talked to that were in their 40s and 50s that were still in love with their first wife. They were remarried, because men are not going to wait. Then no grass is going to grow under their feet. But they had moved on, but they were still in love with that first woman. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I don't want to be the second wife, with the man that is still harboring those feelings. So I think you really have to, for those of us that are willing to do the work, and the work is not fun and the work is not sexy, if you have some issues, you really have to get over them, because otherwise you do your partner and you really do yourself a disservice.
I think we cool with that one. I like that. I think that's some good counsel for Larry Love.
Okay. So check this
that
out.
was good.
I want to ask this question here for the ladies on the set.
All right.
All right. True or false?
False.
All right. Well, let's stick with that one here. Money makes it harder for a woman to date.
I'll say true. I'll say true.
Okay.
I'll say true.
Way to keep your real hat on. And why do you say that?
Well, let's see what you got. Is it just true? Just a true false. Just true
I don't
false.
understand. When you say having money,
Yes.
money in what way?
Yes, having
Having more money
yes.
makes it
more
harder.
money. Yes, harder for
I'm
women
gonna stick
today.
with false.
Okay, so we got a true and we got a false.
Okay.
Let me hear why you say true.
Okay, I'm going to say true because in my experience dating, men are quicker to make assumptions. And the biggest assumption is you don't need a man. I would hear men tell me that from the very first. I haven't even said anything to you. You just know what I do. And they think that you don't need a man. And that's not how I feel at all. So I think that money makes people make assumptions. And I think that sometimes makes it hard. I think that most men are drawn to women that they think they can help. They like the damsel in distress. And so a lot of times when you are successful, it's hard to be seen as someone that needs a man and someone that needs and truly values a man's input.
Well, listen, and that
So-
doesn't make him insecure, by the way, ladies.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it makes him
But
insecure.
Crystal is
human
right,
nature.
though. Crystal is right. I think when women make a certain amount of money, men do assume.
Let me tell y'all
For
something.
sure.
I had one cougar in my life for real.
Oh.
I'm gonna be honest though.
I didn't expect
No,
that.
she was really
She was
legit cougar.
just successful, like one of the most successful people I know. Her portfolio of work expands. Yeah, I probably know her, but anyway, like long
Probably.
story short, though, she told me that she had this condo in Buckhead. She had the G-Wagon. She
Mhm.
had the. I'm talking about. She said she had the all the
all the
hottest women at
trinkets,
the
all the
time.
trinkets.
all
yeah.
the trinkets. And she said literally it was the worst thing for her dating life.
Yeah.
She said when she brought men
Mhm.
to her place,
Mhm.
she literally could see in
Mhm.
their eyes
Mhm.
them just almost disqualifying her
Yeah, I have
as they
experience.
looked around.
No, I don't have
She
all that stuff, but
literally
yeah.
said she scaled back her lifestyle,
Mhm.
got a whole different, way more conservative apartment. Because even when I first went to apartment, I'm like, oh, okay. You live here? Oh, okay. Like her vehicle, way more conservative. So, and none of it, like the way she was living matched what her potential or her capacity to live at. No. And she said it literally was impacted. That was motivated because of the way men responded to her luxurious lifestyle.
I wish she wouldn't have done that. I wish
mean-
she would
No,
not have
Crystal,
done
Can I
that.
seriously?
just jump in
No,
on why
she
I
would
said
not have done that. I wish she would not have done that because I feel like the right man will not assume. If he's assuming he's not the one for you. I have a girlfriend that had that same experience. She had a huge, beautiful home. And she's like, as soon as you see men pull up, they're like, and they immediately, I didn't even have what I have. My girlfriend was like, oh, you got that car? You ain't never gonna get a man now.
But Crystal, who
But
is
I
that stuff
refuse
for?
that.
Who is that stuff for?
For me, I like it. My friend liked her house. She built it from the ground up. What's wrong with that?
Do you really think she probably had a 5-bedroom house?
She did.
Do you really think that house was for her, or was it
Yes.
for her friends or
No.
Instagram or what other people think?
I can tell you for myself, I had a 4-bedroom house and I loved it. It was for me. My kids laughed and that was me and the dogs. We were having a good time. Like, I don't think you can assume that everyone is doing that for someone else. Like, I don't think that's fair. And I don't think that any woman should shrink herself. I don't believe that. I think you should find balance and find happiness, and you shouldn't chase things if you're impressing your friends, that's a problem. But I think if you really get what you want, how dare you not have a G-Wagon because it's going to offend somebody? The right man is going to step up.
That's why I said false to the question of having money makes it harder to date. It's different. It's like more money, different problems. But it costs too much to shrink and to bring yourself down, when if you tap into truly what it means to be abundant, you can tap into an abundant dating circle. Mm-hmm. And so as someone who has grown, as I've grown in my career professionally, I used to shrink. I used to wonder, oh, men are going to be intimidated. Oh, I've got a book coming out. I have all this. Mm-hmm. If you Google me, all these things show up. But I found that, you know what? If I'm shrinking, I'm going to call in a man who wants me that small. Mm-hmm. So if me playing full out makes you uncomfortable, then you really aren't the man. And I say that mm-hmm. to other women, but I will say on the other side of graduating from playing small, I've been pleasantly surprised to meet a higher quality of man I never would have met if I kept shrinking. So to women who do think and believe that, oh, it has to be harder. No, do you have to work smarter? Does it make you have to be different? Do you have to become unapologetic? Yes. But is it possible to play full out as a woman, to be financially solid, to move into your dream house, to have your dream car, and still find people who love you and appreciate you for what you bring? Yes. Because even in that, for all the success we have, there's still more men who make more money overall than women. There's still more male millionaires than there are women millionaires.
Well, so yes, that's true.
But
let's just be realistic.
Don't want female millionaire. So I will say that.
This is the thing. It's not that many people out here getting money like that.
Yeah, you don't have to flaunt your wealth. That's
true.
I think that the other piece of like having money doesn't mean I have to flaunt it. If that's I don't have to perform being wealthy. Right. You might not know truly the women I find who are most aligned with who they aren't trying to impress you anyway.
Right.
And
men too, though. Let's just say men too, because a lot of times women go after the man that has the flashy car and the house, and he's cash broke. Like I will say, because I'm one of the few some of my girlfriends won't date blue collar guys. I was just like, I will date whoever I like, right? If he and I can have a conversation, I'm fine with that. And I like to ride horses, so I would go riding with like these cowboys, and these men have 40 acres, boats, trucks, but see that when they show up, they're not driving a Bentley. And to me, I think you have to find what you like. If you're a flashy person and you want the dude with the Bentley with the section, then you should get that, but know what that comes with. But if you're just talking about security, for me, I prefer the man that got the acres, and I like, that's what I like. But you have to know who you are to know what is going to work for you.
So just like you say that you prefer the guy who is not showing and showcasing his value on the outside, then I think Tyshawn is saying the same thing. Just a woman downgrading her lifestyle is probably to be more attractive to men who don't like her.
My problem is, did she do it for a man? Because my problem is the man is, don't believe the man is the prize. I know a girl was like, I'm moving from Atlanta because you can't find a man in Atlanta. I wish I would move. I wish I would do a different job for a man. You will shrink yourself and be by yourself in a broke ass apartment. What you should do is live the life that you are happy with and comfortable with, and the right man will show up. But you have to have the courage to know that what is for you will not pass you by. I dated for a long time here and everything. It looked like, because it wasn't the right one. I'm so glad I waited, because I believed that what God had for me wasn't going to pass. I could be single. I was single a really long time, but when the time was right, it didn't pass me. But if I had shrunk, I would have been miserable.
See,
Can I
so
let
I,
you
I
do
think
that?
I,
But
I don't
let me
know
be-
if
let me
that's
be
the best
clear.
advice for women, because you're talking about material things, Crystal.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about what makes you happy.
But this
What
thing,
makes you? If she
if a
wanted that G
Mercedes
wagon,
Benz G-Wagon makes you happy, then I don't know where you are as a human being
but
if
that's
that
everybody is
material
different
thing
though.
makes you
Everybody
happy.
is different.
that's
For
true.
me, everybody is different. You can't judge people on what they like. I don't.
Not what they like, what makes them happy.
But you
This thing-
can't judge people on what makes them happy, because everybody is motivated by something different. There is a guy who is just as flashy as that woman. Like I said, I like acres. I dated a lot of guys that were from the city. Like, I don't want to live in the country. I was telling you when I just got here, it's deer by my. I like that. Another guy would have been like, I don't want that. I remember I was talking to a guy, I was like, I want to have 4 horses. He was like, that sounds like a lot of overhead. And he didn't want to provide that. Move along, sir, because this is what I like. I think people have to really, that self-actualization I was talking about is so important. You have to figure out what drives you. If you're driven by a Mercedes G-Wagon, then get the G-Wagon. And know, sis, that the right man who appreciates that, he may come along and upgrade your G-Wagon. Don't ever shrink, because what you're going to do is you're not being authentic. We have to all live in our authentic selves.
I cannot endorse that for these ladies, because y'all gonna give yourselves a hard time.
And you're going to have them in a
y'all,
broke apartment, broke.
I really
single.
don't think so. I think that there are all things that we can do as men and women to make ourselves be more attracted to the opposite sex.
But
the
making
reality
yourself
is-
unhappy though.
No.
But
I don't think
I would-
downgrading some material things is making yourself
But what if
unhappy.
that person enjoys that?
Listen, enjoy is different from it being a source of their happiness. Now, if you are serious about finding you a man as well when it comes to relocation, and you don't think this specific geographic location is best, I don't see nothing wrong with a woman moving somewhere where she'll be able to where she feels she'll be able to find better success in finding a man. This is the thing. What is the goal? The duty of a man is to raise a family and steward for family. What is a woman's purpose? A woman's purpose is to bear children and raise children. So if you're not focused on getting to the end goal, it's like, why would you sacrifice some material things, just having a big house and a
Can
car?
I just jump in
to find
on
the
this piece,
man.
because I do think it's important. I just want to say this piece as someone who has interviewed over 1,000 Black singles and happily married Black folks. The people who are truly in love with themselves and love their life have no problems dating. So I want to say, if you are someone who finds
Mhm.
yourself, is it because I have the G-Wagon that I'm not getting dates? No. Do I have to move cities? Is that the reason I'm not going on dates?
Mhm.
No. Because I want to tell you, there are people who in any city in Atlanta, I, as a Black woman, I enjoyed being single in Atlanta. You can meet many. I've interviewed couples who I met a woman, she met her husband, they both was on hard times in a homeless shelter. And I'm not saying as an example, that's a hot spot to me, but I am saying when you get in the vibration of, I am clear on who I am, I love myself and I love my life, you will always attract love to you. So
Agreed.
I think we have to cancel that spirit of lack and say, you got to shrink, you got to tap into scarcity. Oh, you're going to be, it's all back to this intimidation spirit. That is a lie.
Yes.
And
Now-
as someone who has lived through it and just seen too many successful stories, because when you really, if you are thinking that, then that's part of the reason that you're already in the spirit of lack.
Absolutely.
So you are
We
going
can
to
talk
continue to
spiritual and abundance and all of this stuff, but we got to talk practicality. Like, if it's a city that this is the thing, not saying that it's not exceptions to the rule and that you can't find love in Atlanta, but I do think we just cannot negate that it's certain tactical things that both men and women can do to improve their chances of finding love.
agree
the
with
best
that.
thing you can do is to find yourself and learn to be happy.
Well, I agree with- I agree with that.
I'm
I agree with
telling
that.
you, this is the thing with that. If you shrink, anything that you do that is causing you to be unhappy, you're not going to show up as your best self. Right? If you give up that job that you love and the apartment that you love to move to a city where there's a bigger rate, the ratio of men to women there's no guarantee that you're going to find your husband there. I just believe, I agree with Sheree 100%. I don't believe in operating out of lack. And I don't think that we do that when it comes to our jobs. We don't do that when it comes to the things that we want for our life. And we should not do that when it comes to relationships. As long as you are operating from authenticity. So I tell women, if you have a list of 10 things, you need to cut that list down, sis, and be realistic and cut it down to 5 non-negotiables, right? And operate from what you do want as opposed to what you don't want, but stop moving out of fear. Fear is always the wrong reason to do anything. And I'm a living testimony. I believe Sheree is a living testimony that in the city of Atlanta, I was definitely what Kevin Samuels would consider unmarriageable. I have 2 children. I'm divorced and I was over 40 and I met the love of my life. And he is everything and so much more. And there's nothing special about me. It's just the fact that I believed that I was worth it. And I started to enjoy my life. And I started to fix those things that I was doing wrong. And I started to speak life about relationships. You know what I mean? I would speak into other women and I was genuinely happy for them, even when I was single, right? I was genuinely happy. I genuinely wanted other people to be happy. And I genuinely believed that God had something amazing for me. And I'm so glad I did not move from Atlanta. I didn't necessarily enjoy dating in Atlanta, but I'm so glad I did not move. I'm so glad I did not shrink. And I'm not a materialistic person, but I remember when I got my car, my girlfriend told me, "Oh, you're not going to get a man because of that car. They're going to see you drive." It just was a Mercedes, but she was like, "Crystal, it's enough. Like you have this. I work with a lot of really high profile men. That was something that men didn't like." And I had a classmate tell me, "Well, Crystal, you should stop wearing weave. You should stop working with celebrities." And I was like, "I'm not going to stop being Crystal. I'm not." And I did it. And I met a man that loved me that way.
Crystal, I would say that you are fortunate and you got lucky, but I think that
Wow.
I think that, and I don't mean that disrespect. When I say by that is what I mean by you didn't change anything from your current situation externally. You was able to change internally.
Yeah.
But I think that not every woman is going to be able to benefit from just an internal change. I think that some women have to do the internal and the external. And this is the thing I think was missing. And why a lot of women are missing out on their love is because they are not making the personal sacrifices. So you're not willing to let that Mercedes go for a little bit, but you was willing to take the entry-level position first at that corporate job. You're not willing to downsize the house or to move to a location, but when that promotion offered itself, then you were willing to take that leap and go ahead and move to that new city. But you telling me you willing to make these personal sacrifices for a corporation versus your future family, that's the difference. So I don't think it's just the internal work that you have to do. I also think it's smart for women to tactically do things on the outside to improve their chances. And if all that is just a little downgrade, is for a short amount of time for love.
How do you know it's a short amount of time? There's no guarantee that your prince will show
There's
up.
no guarantee, but see this thing, we got this pod, right? There's no guarantee that it's gonna be the #1 relationship show in the world. But because I've decided that that's what I wanted, I'm gonna live and die with this pod. So if I decide as a man or as a woman that I want a family, then I'm going to live with whatever decisions and personal sacrifice that comes with. Now, if you don't want to do that and you only want to work on the internal work and you want to leave all other conditions the same, then by all means, take that risk and maybe you will find a love like these two ladies.
I just
Can
disagree
I
with
talk
you
about
100%.
a few other external things that aren't? There's options to not downgrading how you live that are important external, because I do believe the internal shifts, but there are external things we do as women. And one thing I do want to talk about that we've talked around is how you make space, no matter what house it is, whether it's the 4-bedroom, whether it's the condo, how you make space. And one of the things I did is I opened my heart for my husband was to start to make space in my home. To make space, I got 2 night tables. I keep one empty. I created space in my closet. I created a space, ladies, in your bathroom. Make an empty drawer in your space, because what you were saying to God and spirit is, I'm making space. I'm available for what I say I want. Because if my closet, no matter what the car is there space at? My cousin put me on this. He's here with me now, Nathaniel. He was like, you want to keep your trunk clean. What if you needed to pick your husband up from the airport? So it was just thinking along the ways, have I made space in my life for this person? So I don't think you have to downgrade, but I do think there are things and habits you can put in your life that says, hey, I'm a woman or man who's made space in my life for the partner I say I want.
And I think the word downgrade is actually a bad word to use, because especially depending on what it is, because this was a woman, by the way, let's give context where this all was born from. This was a woman who really wanted a man. Be very clear,
Okay.
right? And you acknowledged
Mhm.
that the psyche,
Mhm.
because this is psychology of
Mhm.
men that would just naturally be turned off by seeing some of these things.
Mhm.
These are probably good men,
Mhm.
but they assume that there's no room here for me. These are probably not bad. These are provider men,
Mm.
men that want to provide for their women, and they might feel like, you know what, there might not be room here for me because of this. And the thing about it is, I don't think it's downgrading as much as it's adapting to more so understanding how men move and think. And the thing about it is, if it is truly
Mhm.
like, yo, this is something I want, like, I think, like, I will feel fulfilled on the inside if I do have this family,
Mhm.
or if I were able to create this thing,
Mhm.
then I go about removing this car or whatever the case is, because in most cases, like, the car really wasn't providing her that much happiness, to be honest.
It doesn't attract the man. It just doesn't add to attracting the man. So if the so is it a big deal?
And by
You
the
know
way,
what I
she
mean?
went from, she went from like a G-Wagon
yeah,
to,
because
to a lower level Benz.
I think, and this is just my opinion, I think that when you start, like I said, I had a guy friend that told me, you shouldn't wear weave. You should, I do think that you should try to be the best version of yourself, right? So being healthy, being in shape, men are visual, but the reality is I am 5'2" and thick. Even in my best day, I'm a curvy woman. There's some men that don't prefer brown skin, curvy women. That's not the man for me. If there's a man that sees me driving at that time my Mercedes and he thinks that I'm going to be too much, that's not the man for me. That friend of mine that said the horses were too much, that's not the man for me. I don't believe in doing anything to change Crystal except making sure that Crystal's not doing the wrong thing. Now, if Crystal was leading with her work, if Crystal was only happy if she had a Mercedes, that Mercedes didn't make me at all. But if I was only happy, then that's something very different. And I think that telling women that they should do, there's no end game to that. You can jump through 8 million hoops. We see women with, and there's nothing wrong with getting plastic surgery. Do what you want to do. But there is a litany of things that people will tell you to do to be more attractive for a man.
That's a good point.
Be in the kitchen cooking all the time. Go to the head doctor classes. Take the weave out. Make sure your natural hair is this. Do that. I mean, at some point, you have to be authentically yourself. And the right partner will show up, because if you do certain things to squeeze and to push yourself into that, when you get with that person, I don't believe that you're going to be happy. For me, I wouldn't be happy if I downgraded, right? The house that I was in, I would have missed my blessing if I let go of that Mercedes. Because you know what? When my husband came, and I'm not talking about material things at all, because I'm not that person, but I just want to show an example, right? There's a meme that has a little girl holding a teddy bear, a small teddy bear, and God is like, give me the bear. And behind his back is a bigger one. My husband, when I met him, I had my Mercedes, and he was like, we're going to get rid of that car. And he bought me a Range Rover. Praise God. So, I mean, a lot of guys, when they saw the Mercedes, they thought, oh, she's high maintenance. Well, thank God for a man that was like, she is high maintenance and she needs something different than that. I'm going to put her in a brand new Range Rover. Praise God for that. And it's not about the material things. It's about a man that was the right fit for me. So he wasn't intimidated by that. In fact, he thought it ain't good enough for her. That's the man that I want. And I feel like if you go into a situation thinking, oh, I'm not going to be able to get a man, so I got to let this go and let that go, you are going to end up with the wrong thing. And I'm telling you, there's no way, if we're not promised anything on this earth, right? I don't think also that the only thing a woman is good for is producing children and being a family. I think we're all here. You said that was the purpose. And I think that
I think that's a great purpose.
But there's some women that don't have children that are that have equal purpose.
I'm not talking about exceptions to the rule. I'm just saying
there are a lot of women that don't have children.
All I'm saying is, as a male and female on this planet, it is our duty to procreate and have family. Like, I don't think there's nothing wrong with saying that.
You know how many women there are that don't have children?
Listen, I'm not saying that. I understand that it's exceptions.
That's not exceptions, though. That's not exceptions. There are a lot of women that don't have children.
So let me ask you this. So are you saying that it is not our duty as man and woman to have family?
I believe that. I mean, the Bible says, be fruitful and multiply.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
But I do not. There's context there, right? Because that was said in the beginning with Adam and Eve. Obviously, we have done that. There are 8 billion people on the planet. I think that our duty is to for me, my duties is to inspire. I'm so thankful that I did have children. I do think that was a big part of my purpose, but I'm not going to negate the fact that there are many amazing women that don't have children. I know this is going to sound stereotypical. Oprah Winfrey does not have a child, but look how many people's lives Oprah has impacted and poured into. I don't think that her life would be more impactful if she had a child. That obviously was not her purpose. Her purpose was to lead and inspire in other ways. I just don't believe, and we can agree to disagree. That's the beautiful thing about dialogue. I don't believe that anyone, male or female, should shrink or change themselves. I'm gonna give you guys a quick story. My son, I remember I told him he's like a brainiac, and he liked these black girls. He was like, "Mom, black girls don't like me," right? And I was like, he went to a school. He was like in the gifted and talented course, and I told him, I was like, well, I said, well, if you want to attract chickens, you got to put down chicken feed, right? So I told him, well, you may want to get your hair cut a little bit more often. You may want to wear these clothes. And he said, no. He was like, I want a girl that will want me for me. And he started dating girls that did like him for him. And later I respected that because I was just trying to, as a mother, protect him and keep him from dealing with the hurt. But the reality is we all will find our tribe. And if I had told him, which I did tell him, but if he listened to me and tried to become someone else, he would not have been being true to himself. And I think there's so much value in realizing that how you are, as long as you've worked on yourself. I'm not saying if you show up as a bitch and you're throwing your money in people's face, but if you are being authentically you and you are at a great space, there is no way that anything that is supposed to be for you will pass you by. Now, there are a lot of people that won't have children that do want to have children. There are a lot of people that want to be married that may not get married, but you cannot live your life in fear and live your life assuming the worst and trying to please other people. That's a miserable existence. And I'm just happy for myself that I didn't do that.
You know what? It's interesting because in the book Boss Brides by Sharia Jackson over here, you actually had a section, a chapter on fertility.
Yes.
Like kind of in the direction of this conversation. I can't wait to get my copy of the book.
I bought you one.
Yes, yes. What's your thoughts on this conversation we having right now? What did you speak on in particular in that area of this book?
Yeah, so that's chapter 6, tend to your ticking clock and your sex drive, because it is important as professional women, because part of that paradox is some of the best years to grow your career professionally are some of also your most fertile years. And so life is infinite, love is eternal, fertility has a time window for both men and women. And so it was important to talk about that conversation, to talk about egg freezing, something I'm very pro, something I thankfully I'm in my 30s. I get my fertility hormones checked. I'm fertile. I can have a baby. Thank you, God, for that. But it's something we have to talk about, specifically as women, because even though men do decline and their quality of sperm declines, there's still not the same level of drop off that women have. Primarily in your 30s, your fertility will peak and you'll see a decline. Now, obviously, there's increasing science that helps prolong. There's different things you can take, but you cannot outrun the science. So I do think it's important we have that conversation as women. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to be vocal about that. There's so many friends I've had who said, girl, I read that in your book, or I read your articles. I froze my eggs. There are also more companies that cover it. So I think it's important you just be informed so that you can make the best decisions. But I also will say this. I think also having a biological clock is a perk for women, because it does allow us we have to be more responsible with our life. So we see the lifespan of women is often longer. In the Black community, the health rates we see a lot of, I think, let's talk about the last few years, how many hip hop artists, how many Black men we've seen decline quickly. So I think the reality that women have to face, the reality of our health with our fertility, makes us just be more conscious overall around our health in general, to have our checkups, to know what's happening in our body. So I'm absolutely, thank you for the question. And to women who are tuned in, don't be intimidated. Bring the conversation up with your doctors, know your hormone, and I put in the book some of the things you ask about that you can run your test more frequently, so you just know what's going on in your body.
So what do you recommend because of that? Like, obviously, like you said, the busiest years, the years they got to get the most active and really build where you're building your career is also where you're most fertile.
Those are some good years, but I will also say this: don't feel like you can't slow up for a little bit to prioritize your personal life. The whole reason I wrote this book, the first chapter is Yes, You Are a Boss Bride. Chapter 2 is Prioritize Love. So I'm someone who's saying prioritize your personal life, your love life. What fuels you is the relationships in your life personally and professionally, so that you are set up. So it's not so much, I think a lot of what this conversation has been so black and white, this or that, either you're a professional woman or you got time for me. And it's like, actually, I can be both. I can pursue all of who God called me to be and make sure that if motherhood is something I want, that I'm having that conversation with myself. And I'm also having that conversation to be informed around my options as a woman. So I know I said it quickly, but as a woman, you can freeze your eggs. And there are a lot of companies. There are also payment plans you can get. So I'm very pro you just being informed to know, but also to plan accordingly. And not to feel the pressure that you can't come back to your career, or let the career be a higher priority later in life once you've added in marriage or added on children. There's so many examples of women who prioritize children early and then been able to still make sure that their career and their personal dreams happen too.
I'm curious to know about how much does it cost to freeze your eggs?
So on average, right now it's about 8,000 to 10, 11,000. And you also often will pay a yearly storage fee for your eggs, which might be a couple $100.
First of all, these companies that demanding damn $80, $100 out of these damn women, they need to cover them damn eggs being frozen.
Well, a lot of tech companies, they use it.
I
They use it as a recruiting tool for a lot of companies when they're recruiting women.
Really?
Yeah. I've been on interviews and they're
that's
like,
how they already know. They already
That's
know.
and see, that's the
right
thing.
Here, don't worry, we'll take care of your eggs.
And
sign right here.
But
see, this is why they do that, because they want you to sacrifice your life.
Doesn't mean that
I do see what you're saying in that regard.
Dating and all the other pieces, because you still at some point want to actually have the family, so you still want to think through those things. I also talk to women who think about whether they might, if motherhood is a big desire and marriage hasn't happened yet, do they make the decision to have children solo? So it's a lot of choices that I think it can feel a little daunting and overwhelming for women. That's why I wanted to bring the conversation in the book, just to have a space, because often your doctor won't bring it up unless you do. If you don't bring it up, your doctors, depending on the type of healthcare you have, no one in your life is really often going to push that conversation. So you do want to make sure, the same way we were in high school, college, they tracked your progress. You want to have that same check-in with yourself around your personal goals, if that includes marriage and children.
Now, I'm not really sure where I stand on the fertility in terms of freezing eggs, but I'm 100% agreeing with you that women should look into family planning. And I think they should do it earlier to decide, so they can see what it actually looks like. And I just think, and that's the thing, ladies, like if 100% of women had this mature understanding that you guys now have, after prior having one way of going about things, now having this new way of going about things, I think we're in a better spot. But I just don't think women are now thinking like that. It truly is. I'm just saying that, just my experience. Tyshawn can speak on his. The average woman is not considerate of family planning and these things that she should do to find love. It's all work, get the bag, and this is all I need, until it gets to the point where until it's too late.
I do agree with
same
you.
way. We just got time. Like
y'all do have time.
We don't prioritize none of this.
But I think I agree with you, and I think that's it's a issue with our society right now. People don't value the things that matter. So I agree with you in that regard. I do think a lot of people form their identity based on their accolades and how much money they have. And I think that when we get to those golden years that all of us are eventually headed for, what you've been able to accomplish financially is not going to be won't be the regrets that you have. I know for me, I will be honest with you, Ryan, because I did have to work so hard, after I went through my divorce, the only regrets I have is not spending more time with my kids. Those are the regrets that I have at this point, because they're grown and I have a great relationship with them. But I can say that, and I tell women this all the time, a lot of times our ambition, and I think it goes to both sides, because people are in a rat race and they're giving their lives to achieving, it is toxic, because you miss out on the things that actually matter. So I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that I think we should be looking at living full lives, right? And we all have the ability and have the right to dictate what that feels for us. But I can say now, as a mother with grown children who I adore, I miss when my son would come to the door and be like, "Mom, can you talk?" And I would have to say, "I'm on the phone with a client." Those are the regrets that I have, So, and I look back and it's like those clients came and went, but those moments I cannot get back. So I do think there's some, there's some importance to what you're saying. I just think it has to be balanced.
I remember, it's funny. It's like I remember here watching a show with Gary Vee, and he was talking to his audience, and he was like, I know what I'm trying to build. I know how big it is, and I know how massive it is. He says, I understand I'm not going to make it to all of my kids' basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm not going to make it to my daughter's, recital. I'm not going to make it to this and to that. And he's saying, this is the cost of what I'm going to build.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of it is I'm okay with that
Mm-hmm.
because that's what it costs to build this. Time is finite.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality
It's
of it
true.
is. And to build anything massive, you're going to have to spend that time somewhere. And you either going to be spending it with your family. And, it's funny because the show here actually is having me really question my own value system, because I was always the guy like, I want to make, I want to have 9 figures. I want to do this and do that. And I just said that because I was broke my whole life.
Right.
I don't even know why the hell I wanted that much money.
I mean,
Yeah.
now can we start at 7?
Right. Like,
But that's
when-
the PTSD
Kelly?
that we have from our
Mm.
culture, from being that Black people in America. That's the experience. So we're looking at it from a standpoint of, I got to make all the money.
Yep.
We don't have an understanding of what money is supposed to do. We look at it as a badge of value and identity. And I went to school with all white kids. They don't have those issues. They're just living life. They're not trying to prove their
But they also
worth.
don't have the same levels of pressure,
Mm-mm,
right? Because
mm-mm.
when you come from generational wealth or come in access to it, it doesn't feel the same. That's a whole other.
That's a good point.
But see, I think that's what we really got to get clear on, like what our values are. Because if we're not clear on it, and like you said, we operating from that place of fear, then you don't figure out what your value system is until you at the end of the game and you feel regret,
Mhm,
because now you realize it's not what you thought it was going to be.
mhm.
Because now that I'm really reflecting on what I want for myself, if I really bring in a well above average income, I think money, I still need to make some money, but I'm still able to be very involved in my family's life and have a family where
Mhm.
all of the brothers and sisters look the same and it's with one woman and they
Yeah.
all under one roof, and I make it
Amen.
all the way to the end of the game
Amen.
Mhm.
with something looking like that,
Mhm.
and we got some money in the bank,
That's
then I'll be
success.
like, wow, this is like tremendous. Like
Mhm.
that'll be really beautiful to me.
Mhm.
And that'll be even probably more valuable than having 9 figures in my bank account
Mhm.
with 4 different baby mamas
Well, let's
and
talk
2
about it.
kids
Because
that
most
don't
of the
like me.
things we value most in life are things that money cannot buy.
Absolutely.
But we live in a society, we live in a country that tells you your value is in your bank account. So
Mhm.
in order to truly have a fulfilled life, you would have to break free of the lie you were born into.
Mhm.
And that's what you've been doing on this show. And that's where you are. And so many of us have to have environments like this where we bump up against the lie.
Mhm.
Because if you're in that day-to-day grind, and that's what happens, you get
Yeah.
it's designed that way.
Yeah.
In order for this economy to thrive, in order for this country to survive, you got to have people who are so distracted
Mhm.
Yeah.
and working hard and giving their hours away that they keep the machine going.
That's true.
So it takes us waking up to be able to even have a reset of
Mhm.
what truly is valuable.
So let's actually move forward. Let's actually fast forward. Matter of fact, we got
Yeah.
a couple people that joined. Go ahead.
We
Go
got
ahead,
a couple
shout out
people, so I got a couple
The
shout outs
family's
real quick.
growing.
Yeah, the family's growing.
Mhm.
Shout out to Shonda, Sumera, and Monica Oliver. So crazy, Monica. Welcome to the team. Monica, I seen your name so much. I'm surprised you just now becoming a member. So we appreciate you very much. Shout out to Shanae Randall. She says, "Be true to yourself and God." It says, "Oh no, be true to yourself, and God will send you purpose, partner, no matter your net worth."
Amen.
I believe that's a fact. Yeah, amen to that. Shout out to Duly Licensed. Crystal's been dropping some game today. She says, I believe what Crystal is saying. Finding someone who has common interests, which allows them to get along well. It's about commonality, interest, hobbies, conversation. The mind is alike. Okay, those were good. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to the ladies. This is what I'm going to do, guys, because we already told you. And if you missed it, Tashana and I did decide to throw an event. And yes, we are throwing an event in 2023 this fall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a link. And all I want you guys to do is just give me your name and email. That's all we need, guys, because we want to make sure that you guys are abreast of exactly what's going on. Of course, we're going to hit you with some surveys. We're going to hit you with some video links. We're going to hit you with all that good stuff. But please, your information is priority, because if we have the event but we don't got nobody to invite, then it's just not going to be a really good occasion. So we really need you guys to send those emails ASAP.
Yes. And listen, I got something very special for y'all, okay? Something very special for y'all coming up. But I want to see 200 likes. Hit this video right now.
I'm gonna close this poll too. I forgot about this.
Yes, close that poll.
We got to get a little bit better at this. I'm gonna close this. Is an old poll. Should women provide financial support for their man when they're dating? That wasn't a good poll. We already knew what the answer is. 78%, 211 votes. 78% of women. I know it was y'all that said no. Which I agree. He got to figure out another way to get it.
You know, ladies, yeah, that's a hell of a red flag. That man. Hey, let me get like
No, but it's more men. It's more men that will do it, and unfortunately, there are a lot of women that will fall for it.
I hear a lot of women.
Yeah,
That's
let's
the next poll. Have you ever?
But they're not gonna. They
I'm
probably
sure.
aren't gonna admit that though.
Yeah,
That's
And I
not
thought
what
about
they
it.
wanna
It's
admit.
honest.
Yeah.
This is the thing. I'm gonna be real with you. I thought about asking a woman for money before, but when I tell you I was at the lowest of lows,
Gotta be.
you gotta be
You gotta be.
really low in the depths
You gotta be hungry
To
at
even-
the time.
yeah.
Your stomach gotta be rumbling.
to even
When
think
you
about it. To even think about it. So, but I didn't, and I think the man who fights that urge, because this is the thing. If a woman first off, women like you,
They'll do it.
she gonna do it.
Oh,
She gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's women here saying that they would never do that. You lying.
Yeah.
You
whatever.
like a dude
Okay.
that you gonna pay.
Absolutely.
But-
Especially you respect.
Yeah.
Especially if you respect them.
Well, you're
Yeah.
not gonna
Well, you're
respect.
gonna
them.
lose all
Not
the
gonna respect them.
Gradually, but it's the love. If your heart is,
You
if
love
your
'em.
heart,
No,
yeah,
there's
you
a lot
love.
of women that love men they don't respect. That doesn't
That's
come.
true.
That does not come. That
That's
does
true.
not. It's not the same. And I think men at the end of the day, this is the problem though. This is the problem. Women will do it for a man they like the way he looks, and if he's dropping the D, but they won't respect him, and then they will talk crazy to him. And men don't want to be with a woman that doesn't respect them.
Yep.
So I have a friend that told me something I will never forget. It's ingrained in my psyche. This girl was doing all this stuff for him. She was just paying his rent, doing all this stuff because she had a lot of money. He said she is a bridge to get me to the girl, to prepare me for the woman that I really want. Because the woman that he really wanted, he would never take money from.
Wow.
This
He
woman,
lost respect for her
right,
too.
he didn't respect her because he really wants a woman that he would never ask for money. So, sis, out there, anytime that you are mothering a man is not going to choose his mother to wife. So a lot of times we are investing in a man that is not going to see us as a wife. And in that situation, which happens a lot, a man will take all that you're pouring into him and he will use that. He will build himself up to become the king that he was meant to be, and he will go find a queen. So don't be that. Don't be that girl. Don't be the bridge.
Men will use women as a stepping stone. I
Yes.
damn sure
Oof.
agree with that. I've seen it firsthand. Haven't done it myself, although I've considered it. But I'm joking, ladies. I would never. I would never.
Before we move forward, I need 15 more likes. I want to see 15 more likes before I give the audience something very special. And continue to send your super chats in. Continue to send those super chats in and ask your questions to
Yes.
this wonderful audience.
440
while
people in
they
the room.
are here.
Hit that like button. 440 people in the room. I had a question for y'all because you mentioned. I think we on the same page about women not financially supporting the man. But I have heard women complain about this. I have heard women complain. They say, "Hey, Ryan, you know what? One thing that makes me upset is when you deal with these dudes, and then all of a sudden they come to you and say, hey, you know what? I'm not in the financial place to be dating right now, or I need to get myself together." And they like, didn't you know that before we started dating? So for the man that does come to a woman and say that, is that a real thing, or did the man know prior? Like, what do y'all think? Because clearly he's not asking for money, but after she's done some level of investment, he comes out and say, hey, you know what?
He's just not that into you.
Oh,
I think he's just not that into you. I believe that we have to understand that every man is not going to see a wife in you. That doesn't make you any less of a wife, but you have to realize that. And if a man says he's not ready, the worst thing you can do as a woman is to waste your pretty on the man. Like, don't waste those years waiting, believing that you can show him how amazing you are. That girl that was giving my friend all the money, she said she was showing him that she was a ride or die. He don't see, if a man sees you as a wife, he will see that from the very beginning. If he's telling you I'm just not ready, he just doesn't see that in you. And I think as a woman, you have to allow put your ego down and just realize that you're not that for every man, just like every man is not that for you. So I think a lot of times we get caught up in believing that we're so this and we're so that we don't want to face that rejection. And it's not rejection, it's actually protection, because he would treat you the way you want to be treated. So to me, I just think he's just not that into you.
It ain't rejection, it's
And
protection.
you gotta
All
when we
right,
talk
that's-
about feminine
game.
energy and receiving, you gotta receive truth too, even when it's
Mhm.
not the truth you want to hear.
Absolutely.
It's still his truth in that moment. So
Mhm.
whether he's just not that into you or he's
Mhm.
someone who is not willing to build with you, be
It
grateful
equals the
that
same.
someone was honest enough to
Mhm.
respect you enough to not waste your time.
It's still a no, sis.
Now, I will say this, because I
That's
will
game.
say we do have to have this conversation, because there are so many men who do feel that way, that I've got to wait till everything is perfect, that I can send 5 kids to boarding school to feel
Mhm.
like now I'm ready. So there does have to become a time where we're willing to build together, where we both have to have realistic expectations of we're enough and we have enough to get started. So I think that is something that I would love to see more men give themselves permission to build with a woman versus feeling.
let's talk about that, okay? Because I think it's important for couples, and I hear different things, but I think it's important for it to be a level of transparency and, like, kind of what your financial picture is,
Mhm.
so everybody kind of know what they're getting themselves into.
Mhm.
Now, ladies, assuming you were, looking to jump the broom with a man, you talking about we got to give men this room and all that. Okay, let's talk about the room. Let's see what the room really is. What financial picture would you be satisfied with in seeing of a man's current picture that won't turn you off? The minimum financial picture for you to be like, you know what? This is somebody I can trust as a responsible man that I would like to grow with. Just give me your perspective on this.
Well, to start, someone who's financially stable, meaning steady income, steady ability to
let's try
cover
to
your
quantify this
bills.
stuff. Let's try to quantify this stuff a little bit.
You want numbers?
Let's
You
try to
looking for
quantify this stuff a little bit. Just even roughly, just so I can really get an idea of what that is. 'Cause
Enough
somebody working at
money to
McDonald's is
cover
gonna-
your living expenses. There's some discretionary income where you can afford to take us out. There's room in the budget for a quality of life. So I don't think
Okay.
it's not so much money. And then how you approach me is something you can sustain. So if you're saying, hey, I want to
Okay.
take you out every week, fine, then that's something that you would be able to sustain and maintain.
And you okay with that? He has no assets or no nothing like that. He just got he got money to take care of you, money to take care of his bills, and right, you could build with that.
And also some like preparation for the future, meaning there's some savings. None of us know what's tomorrow's coming, so you've planned for a contingency, you've planned for an emergency.
And he got 1,300 in his account saved up.
I mean, you want at least 3 months, like whatever, like financially. And also, I would say this: I would say at least now you need 6 months to a year minimum. But also, you're not doing it all your own. I think the men I've dated who've got a financial planner, you can hear him in his conversation. He's got some teams. It depends on age. A man who's over 35 into his 40s, you're expecting him, if he hasn't bought, that he's talking about it. He's got he's talking about investment. Like he's talking about something where you can see that he has a plan for a future, because it's not just the money. There's plenty of men who might have high income, but who do not have a plan or future to sustain that money. So it's not just how much he has, but how he thinks about money that matters.
Yeah. So because of that, do you typically like or preference a certain age range of a man that will be able to consistently bring that kind of picture to
Usually, but that's the thing, you got to watch with age, right? Because as you go up, yes, he might have more income, but there's also more that comes with an older man, and depending on where he is, there's a whole lot of variables. When you
Divorce,
start to talk.
alimony,
So what's
child
your sweet
support.
spot? What's your sweet spot?
Mine. So I'm in my 30s, so I prefer someone who's 40, usually 43 or under.
Okay.
That's
makes
a
sense.
sweet spot where they're together. They're still youthful in some ways, but also it's not like, because one of my hot spots, shout out to the single ladies. I meet men in traveling a lot. So in the airport, so I met this guy in the airport, and he said, "How let's go to dinner." I said, "Okay." And he had been married twice and had 6 kids. That was 8 people. So I knew I wasn't interested in him romantically at all, but just the idea before
Right.
I knew that, I already knew it. Just was
Yeah.
like, oh, he was nice. But I was just like, that's just a lot. And then some of the kids were young, so it was just a lot going on. Where it's not,
Wow.
it's not that I'm not open to dating someone who's been married before or someone who didn't have kids, but it just seemed like that was a lot.
Yeah, he bringing them bags in the house.
It's tricky.
He
I
bringing
mean,
them bags in.
you didn't really give a financial, like a number, but I think it's still hard to find, even though you didn't give a number, because you mentioned somebody who is planning for the future, somebody who's looking past kind of what they currently doing now. I don't know if there's that many guys that are actually doing that, because
I feel like a lot of y'all are very, especially now in the last 4 or 5 years, men are, think they're very much more into their finance, like into investing. And look at what y'all did for Earn Your Leisure. Y'all be talking about money.
They don't be having it though.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah,
They don't.
Talk
I
about
mean, I don't think so. And I think that's also, I'm in my 40s. So I think that I look at it from the realistic standpoint. I think a lot of younger women just have this idea, they don't understand how few men actually earn over 6 figures. Very
Right.
small number.
facts.
Very small number. And so I don't think it's fair to expect a man in his 30s to be in the same place as a man in his 40s or 50s. And I think you have to be realistic about that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with building, but I do think it's fair to want someone that's of like mind, right? So for me, I was very conscious of saving, and I had to take care of children. I stayed in the same house for like 12 years, and then I bought out. So I wanted someone that was doing that. A lot of the men that I met here in Atlanta, they were not. They looked like they were financially fine, and then when you got in the house, it was empty, or like it just, a great car, but and great wardrobe. To me, I'm not attracted to that. So if you got Balenciagas, but you don't have any money in the bank, I'm not into that. But there are a lot of women that are doing the same thing.
Yep.
So for me, I wanted someone that had discipline when it came to money, because I feel like that's what you need for longevity. But I also feel like women need to be a little bit more realistic and understand, especially you women in your 20s and 30s, like you got to understand that this idea of a man that can buy you all these purses and bags is just not realistic. If he is disciplined, he's not spending $5,000 on a bag. It's just not, that doesn't make common sense. It's not common sense. Any man that is fiscally responsible is not going to spend frivolously on things just because you're pretty. So I think that women have to understand that, right? And if you want to have a family takes foundation. That means that, I'm looking at a man that is looking into owning a home and making sure that he's providing a place so that he can be a provider and a father. If he's popping bottles at the club and has on a bunch of designer clothes, chances are he's not really preparing for that. So I think that those are things that I learned, but I kind of was always like that because I was married early. But I think that a lot of young women miss out on that, and they look at the guy that's flashing money and think that means he has money. But a lot of times it just means he's spending his money. And that means both of you guys are going to be broke very quickly.
And that's the culture here. I'm telling you, if y'all in Atlanta, let me tell you something. Keeping up with the Joneses, or really keeping up with Daquan and Shaniqua, it's hard as hell.
And they're lying. They're lying.
It's great. I was out on
They're scamming. It's a lot of scammers. It's a lot of scammers. It's not real for a man to actually have a real job and make over 6 figures. It's very small.
It's a
percent.
marathon.
Very small percent. And then he's not going to have a lot of time. So all these women, I see women saying, I want a man that owns his own business. First of all, our man to own his own business and earn over 6 figures is even harder. And then he's not going to have any time. He's not going to have any time for you at all. So you want him to be able to go on vacations, like pick up and go on vacation. Like, who can do that if he's an entrepreneur? He's not going to be able to do that. So I think that what I hear women saying in the dating space when I'm talking to women is not really realistic. There was this whole conversation with Ebony K. Williams of I don't want to date the bus driver, right? And I had a conversation with a journalist, and she was saying, well, I want a man that can rub my feet when I want him to, and that he doesn't have to go into a 9 to 5. He has the ability to, just pick up and go, and we can travel. And I was like, the reality, that's not realistic. A man who actually owns his own company probably doesn't have a lot of time to rub feet and just go on vacations. Like, as women, we have to get our head out of the clouds and stop thinking of the Disney movie and actually be realistic about what it is. You have a man who's an entrepreneur who is earning, you're probably going to have to kick in and be a part of that. You know what I mean? But it's not going to be a lot of time for romantic dates that you can put on Instagram,
I'm gonna get. Let me get a little
Thanks for
gangster.
keeping it real.
Let me get a little gangster with
Wait,
y'all.
can I get some shout outs real quick?
Go ahead.
So real quick, we missed this one. Shout out to the wifey. Shout out, man, the wifey. She's been a supporter since day one.
Yes.
Officially hit that 1 month membership. She says, once we know who we are, we then know who to bring along. The sooner we do,
That part.
the sooner it can flow into your life.
There you go.
She loved a combo. She said lit combo. We got some more. Shout out to Yali, man. Yali is quickly becoming one of my favorite members. Yali
Facts.
just did it for the love. She just sent over the 20 piece just for the love. Yali, thank you so much. We need that. We're getting
Much
the
love.
studio soundproof. Shout out to I missed one. Shout out to Shanae Randall. Shanae always showing love. She says, that's true. She says, I have an ex that has a home, a nice car, a dream job. Now he is back trying to wife me. I don't feel the same now. So sad. No, thank you. So hopefully he's not in the chat. Shanae, hopefully he's not in the chat.
Oh, he in
And
there.
if he is, you heard her, sucker. She don't want you no more. And one more, shout out to Allison, who's officially been a loyal supporter for a month. Allison, man, shout out to you. She says, thank you, Tyshawn and Ryan, for curating the best podcast, having amazing guests, engaging with us, and consistently providing quality content that's enriching for our lives. Man,
Yes,
Allison, we love that. Thank
always,
you so much.
Listen, we always love seeing the love, and I'm gonna go here before I transition into our special gift for you guys because we hit our light goal. I'm actually gonna tell y'all this. We had
I'm surprised Crystal kept it so real too.
yeah,
Kept it so real about these women. Delusional. There's not that many men making that kind of money. And Crystal's just telling you for a fact, it's hard to find a man that's doing all that. And if you find a one that's entrepreneur and doing these good things, you may have to be a little flexible.
And that's why, honestly, too, you it's better for you to look at the character traits versus anything else, because that's the biggest predictor of who the man is going to become, who he is, what he does, his habits, his routines, his friend groups. Those are really the things you really want to look at, to really look at the charts and predict what trajectory this brother got. But when I tell you, we had 60 Goddess on here, and she gave the lady some game one time. She said, for the ladies, she said it's a trade-off. She said it's a trade-off. She said, if you date the older brother, you're not going to have much time in his body. So you got to get the bag. She said, so when you date an older brother, he got to make sure he has that bag, because sis, his body, it ain't gonna really be where it at. Y'all see, we just had Dr. Bobby Price on here. These brothers ain't getting it up. All right.
They
and
not,
just in general, even aside that energy in general is just not the same. Whereas if you get a younger brother, you get the benefits of his body. He has energy, he has virility, he has fire. But the bag, it ain't really there yet. So as a young woman, that's kind of the trade-off. It's the bag or the body. That's what she said. I looked at it, I was like, whoa.
I think
what y'all think about that one, lady?
I think that's a different goal. I think that's a different goal in mind. She might have been operating from a different goal, right? And that's okay. There are some women that are operating from a different goal. I don't agree with that. I think that you should actually be looking at men not as a commodity.
But we are, though. I mean, the reality of the situation is women look at us as like we are like, it's about performance. Like men.
No. But right, performance. But I'm saying that when you look at a man like, okay, either I have these two options, that the idea of who I'm in love with, who I'm gonna be a great partner with, that's left out of that equation. Who can dick me down or who can give me the best bag? Those two things are, to me, missing who I can be an amazing helpmate for. Like I said, like I feel, and I think she's beautiful. I respect her. I just disagree with that sentiment. I think that, like I said, marriage is really about serving. That's not necessarily marriage. That's about getting something for yourself. You need to look at who you want to be able to stand behind. I remember seeing a woman stand up. Her husband had passed away, and people got up to talk about her husband. It was like they were honoring him. And she was talking about the man that he was. And I remember being single thinking, wow, if I had a man like that had that type of integrity and true, like just being a good person, I would be willing to I would be honored to stand behind him. That's what I want. Now that's different than saying, who gonna give me the biggest bag and who gonna give me the best dick? Those are two different things. But I'm saying I want to be with the man that I'm so honored to be his wife, that I'm excited about being his helpmate. I'm excited about being his complement. So that means I'm not judging him based on money or solely sex value. It's about what we can create together and how aligned we are. And that's something very different.
Well, I mean, I don't know if she was isolating and saying that's his entire value. I think she was just generalizing the trade-offs of younger and older men of kind of what it comes with.
Or why not just find a man that you're the best complement for? And that is the best fit for you, as opposed to saying, this is what I'm going to get out of it. Because a lot of women are taught to look at men as a way of survival, right? He's going to pay for my bills. There are two types of women. I think there are women that look at men as a means to their financial security. And in that situation, a lot of them date older men, right? And then there are women that just, want to enjoy having a good time. And that's probably the ones that will look for the younger. I think my best advice to young women would be to look for a man that would be, if you want a husband, if you want to build a family, then you need to look for someone that has a great character and has a well-rounded picture. And that includes of course, you want to have some physical charisma and some sexual chemistry. You want him to be a great provider, but you also want him to be emotionally receptive and open. But there's so much more than just how much money he makes or how good he is in bed. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You looking like
the bag or the body. Which one you over there want? Which one you want?
I mean, I
What's your thoughts on that,
co-sign
really?
so much of what Crystal said because, and let's be real that for generations of women, a woman couldn't have a credit card in her name to the 70s, right? In like 76. So we're talking, it's very new. So even this conversation around professional women and the option for a woman to have a career is so new. So it is the best time in history to be a woman who is passionate, but it also means our mindset is still catching up with where reality is. Because if you minimize a man to that, then the trade-off becomes we get minimized to just what are the things we can do. Either she a good cook or she a good lay. Like it's so much more. And I think we've talked around it, but I think, and I've loved Crystal's point, but really it's important for someone who does desire partnership and relationship. How do you define what marriage is for? How do you define what relationship is for? Because until I got a clearer definition of what marriage was and that God created marriage and what it was created for, that is not a status as we're told. And I never thought of it, but it truly is an assignment. And until I started really in my 30s, when you asked about the age to marry, you should get married the second you understand why marriage was created and not a second before. Because if you're getting married and you don't have a clear understanding of what that institution was created for, then you're going to mismanage it. And so I think it's important that we understand not just the sacrifice, but the beauty and surrender. Because if those are my only two options for a man, and you want it all, right? You want to be truly fulfilled. And I think as my faith in God grew, my excitement for marriage grew, because I started to truly believe, wow, God, you love me so much that you made somebody for me. When Adam first saw Eve, he said to her, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Like he didn't just see, she got a big old booty, and I'm sure Eve's body was banging because it was what Adam desired.
It was all natural back then.
I can't stand y'all, but I'm just saying, like, she clearly fulfilled him in that way, but she was created with him in mind. And so I believe that is available for us, but that's my level of faith, because your marriage and your relationship with other people will only come as a reflection of a relationship with God and the relationship you have with yourself. So if you're not clear on who you are spiritually, if you don't really love yourself when you look in the mirror, dating will always suck for you. Until you get those two things in order, then you'll be excited. So when people see me now, they're like, oh, you got great energy. It's only because I'm tapped in. I'm tapped into who God is, and I'm tapped into my amazingness. So then I'm able to attract and magnetize to myself people who bring that same thing to me.
Whoa. Perfect segue. Because we are finally about to give the people what you came here to give them.
Hit that like button. Hit that like button.
We got something very, very, very special for y'all here. For those of you who stuck around, the people that left, they're not going to get it. This is just for y'all. Okay. But Miss Jackson,
yes,
we went ahead and
my
teamed
cousin
up
Jackson.
with you.
Come on.
Yes. Family right here. We went ahead and teamed up with you so you can bring something very special to our audience because the ladies need it. Could you please tell them what we have for the ladies and who it is for?
Yes. First, thank you. Thank you all for this space. This is an important conversation. Shout out to all of y'all who said yes and hit the like button, who are in the family. Welcome. It's been an honor. And as Tashawn shared, my name is Sharia. I've spent 20 years working in media. 10 of those years I spent reporting, researching on the love lives specifically of Black women and men at Essence, where I was a senior editor. And as someone who interviewed and profiled over 1,000 singles dating professionals, the biggest thing I realized, and even in writing my book Boss Bride, was that we are so missing a big foundational part. So I was hooking people up on dates, hosting dating boot camps with Steve Harvey, like doing all these things. But I'm like, until we get the foundation right, that relationship with ourselves stronger, then nothing else will flow. And the other side is, if you only make the shift of having a refreshed relationship with yourself, everything will change. I'm a living testimony of that. I often will say I'm a round brown girl from Decatur, Georgia, right down the street. I didn't grow up with anybody who worked in the industry I wanted to work with. I didn't grow up with a lot, but what I did grow up with was a dream. And so when I learned how to better charge my own energy, when I learned how to better love myself and show up in relationship different, everything changed. When you talked about visiting Oprah, like the first time I was in a room with Oprah, different people were saying hello to her. I walked up towards where she was standing and walked right out of the door. It did not occur to me to go up to her and introduce myself, because I never given myself permission that I was worthy of meeting her. And so I had to have a refresh. I went from that version of myself to sitting in her backyard interviewing her, to saying, hey, my friends are getting married. Would you record a video from them? Because my interpretation of who I was changed. And how I did that was I had to refresh my vision of myself. And so I'm excited now that I get to help other people now do that. How do you see yourself as the incredible person that God created you to be? So you walk into any room, not just excited that everybody wants to meet me, man, women, boy, girl, but that I am the answer on this planet for what I'm here to do. So with that long speech, listen, I've been able to take all of that and quickly put that into 8 sessions. How do we start to reinterpret how we see ourselves so that we show up for the life we want? So it's a program called Inhale. It's 8 sessions. It includes video. I never published it online of what it was like to be at Oprah's house. I put that in there because I want people to reclaim your old dreams. So if you go to inhalemydreams.com, this is just for the Harley Initiated fam. So you'll see you'll see there's a price there. But because Tashawn and Ryan take good care of y'all, I said I can't come in y'all house and not take good care of the people. So we're giving you 50% off.
Oh my goodness.
That's Tashawn. Tashawn dropped the hammer.
Look at that.
All you gotta
Tashawn,
do is put in the code
negotiator.
initiated.
Initiating. Y'all better spell it right.
Initiate. Listen, spell it right. 50% off.
Yes.
And for the first 15 people that sign up, you get to come on and ask your questions live. Because one thing I didn't mention here, but I think is important is at 19, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I don't wish that on anybody, but I will say it gave me the gift of not taking for granted my time. So I don't take it for granted that I get to live a life I love, that I wake up excited about my life, because I don't take time for granted, because I know what it was like to have to face something that was life-threatening. And so because of that, I'm on fire to make sure other people don't waste your time.
Yeah.
That you really get busy living the life you were born to lead, that you get busy. So these conversations, women like me and Chris are like, yeah, a lot of we not average, and you don't have to be, that you can't upgrade your energy to have a different experience of what life could be. Because the life I'm living is not the life that most people who grew up with me thought I would be living. But I made a decision that if I changed, everything could change.
And I'm gonna tell y'all, we going ahead and we putting the link in the chat. It's gonna be also in the description for those of you who are watching after this video is put together. But guys, listen, me and Ryan, we are constantly in masterminds, having coaches, getting ourselves anything that we can do to submerge ourselves in personal development. And we got something here. By the way, this is super affordable. It ain't even a money thing. It's a do you want to invest in yourself thing. And what we doing now, we doing a better job and not just bringing you guys the inspiration and the motivation and the tactics in these conversations, but we actually about to start really lacing y'all with some resources, lacing y'all with some communities, lacing y'all actually with the tools that you need to implement this stuff into your lives and to hold you accountable. because I don't want y'all just getting addicted to information. I want y'all actually getting addicted to change and growth. So that's what we need to be doing. So Ryan is going over here doing what he's doing. Y'all about to start seeing that in there. Thank you so much for taking care of our people.
Can I just say thank you for that? Because I'm someone, often people say, oh my gosh, I love your energy. And what I'll say is thank you and I pay for it. So I've completed over $100,000 in personal and professional development coaches. Right now, in just in this year, I'm paying $25,000 in coaching programs. And so it's because I know what I'm willing to bet on me every time. So I just want to applaud y'all for betting on you. I'm applauding all the Hardly Initiated fam who are betting on you. You betting on yourself by showing up in this podcast, and don't stop. Get all the help you need to become that next version of yourself, because it's possible. And then, then one day you might be Ryan's girl.
If you work hard enough.
But then you stop working, because then he don't want you working too hard, girl.
Not too hard.
Don't work too hard.
She got ready for the soft life.
This is getting shady on this show over here, y'all. From both angles.
Right.
No, we came to a cool. Ryan and I have come to it. I understand what you're saying. I don't agree with everything, but I applaud the fact that he wants to give us his queen the soft life.
Yes.
We need more men like that.
Absolutely.
Who even are thinking that way. And I don't agree with everything.
It's just the way you're getting there. But we're working on it.
It is something admirable and it's just important for even Black women. So many women will say, I didn't even know there were men like that out there.
Absolutely.
And so it's important to know that there are men who you might not have met someone who they might not have seen that up close.
And even men, I think you guys are a great example for young men, because there are young men who haven't seen a man say, I want to be able to provide for my family. That's huge. And we've gone through so much, but we need young role models that people can relate to and look up to actually voice things. I think that's powerful.
I'm glad y'all came up here to drop some game, because it's a lot of ladies that are professionals, and it's a lot of ladies that are serious about the grind and serious about their work that still want to be able to find love. I think it is certain things, whether internal or external, that can prevent them from, finding that level of success. But I think with the game that you ladies dropped today, it's going to help them be able to find that. And we got a lot of guys that follow the channel as well.
Facts.
And I think guys are, if, like I said, if they coming with the mindset that y'all got, I don't think there's any reason why a man wouldn't be open to it. So
and lacing my guys real quick. We're gonna end on this one here, because I want to know this. For my guys who are concerned about a woman that who might be career focused or career oriented, right? What are some things that he should look for in that woman to know that this is a woman that he can build with, and her career will not negatively affect this relationship?
For me, I think the most important thing is the way she speaks, right? I think our words show, as a man speaketh, so as a man saith in his heart, so is he, right? So I think a woman who comes to, has conversation with you and is able to speak to the many parts of herself that don't include work, I think that's a great starting point, right? And I think in order to get a woman that's in that space, you also have to be willing to do that. A lot of times the guys that I would meet, because they would see what I did, they would come bragging about what they had, right? So then that just automatically puts up a defense. So everybody is like, this, and it becomes a match. I think just having great conversation with the woman will allow you to really, truly see who she is. If she's not able to speak of her identity outside of work, that's probably a red flag. If she speaks of, her of friendships and things out in a family, those are all points. And a lot of times we ignore those red flags because it's someone that we like or we're attracted to them. So I think just listening, I know women talk a lot. So just listen to what she's saying and listen to what she's leading with. If she's leading with the doctorate, the accolades, the career advancement, that's a sign that that's where her treasure lies, right? But if she actually wants to get to know you, if she's actually speaking about her future in terms of wanting to be in a family and wanting to create family, then give the sister a chance. Give her a chance.
Yeah, and
I'm open to it.
And I would say to the men, first, thank you, and thank you in advance on behalf of the women who've worked hard or put energy into their careers, because it is such a relief as a woman who might work hard professionally to be able to have a man who takes charge in the relationship when you don't have to. My favorite days as I learn to lean into my feminine and to really be a woman at my core and return to my feminine. It was who I was innately. I attracted masculine men, and it was so refreshing to not have to, be at dinner and, hey, I'm thinking of ordering. That sounds great. Hey, I'm thinking to go here. That sounds great. And so I would say to a man who's wondering, first, don't be intimidated by her because she was built. She truly is a woman who's in her feminine. She desires masculine energy. She loves it. It's a break from her. Especially if she's a manager or a leader at work, you want to take a break from that at home.
Absolutely.
And so you'll see that very quickly if she's a woman who allows you that space to lead. And then ask her too some of the things she likes to do for fun. And so create that space for her. But I would say you'll know very early on if she's someone who is willing to follow your lead and be fun. It's been exciting for me in busier seasons of my life and professionally. Like when I launched my book, I talk about this in the book. I had a masculine energy man I was dating at the time. It was so refreshing to come off my book tour and he's like, hey, I'm just going to pick you up. Hey, I'm just going to do this for you. And so I would say we need our men. And as a feminine energy professional woman, I love masculine men. And I love men who are not intimidated by the fact that I have been someone who's pursued my professional passions.
And there you have it, folks. Listen, thank you, ladies, so much for coming up on here today and feeding the people. And y'all see, listen, one thing you can say when you come to Harley Initiated is that we are not about to sit here and fake agree like we agree or we don't. Y'all about to always hear the realest conversations, but understand it always comes from a place of love and it always comes from a place of wanting you guys to get the perspective that's going to help you grow and get to the next level. So I appreciate y'all ladies coming up here and standing on what y'all got to stand on.
Cracking up
10 toes
laughing.
down.
Being 10 toes down. Because, even these conversations, we stand on what we stand on, and we're going to challenge thoughts that what we don't believe are true or that we just want to better understand. But at the end of the day, we always leave the conversations better than we came in, which is why we invite people on here that we are willing to allow shape our perspectives on things. And y'all ladies are more and in fact overqualified to be able to do so. And we excited to even have y'all back.
Thank you
know
for
what I'm saying?
having me.
I'm honored.
You can probably talk about something else too.
Oh yeah, and I'm
honored.
gonna drop Crystal's first episode in the description too, because that was a really great episode. Y'all got to make sure to watch that one. I think that one was close to like 50,000 views. So shout out to Wifey dropping the dub before we head out. Wifey, we appreciate you, and all that goes to Soundproof in the studio. So I will give you guys an update on Wednesday to let you know where we're at with the fun for Soundproof in the studio. But really quick before we close out, guys, it's very important that we get your contact information. It's private. We don't sell your information. It's only for the Harley Initiated team, which is Tarshawn and I, right? So we're going to use this information to reach out to you because we are doing an event this fall. So it's very important that we give you the updates and the latest to that. So look into the description. You're going to see a link that says events, or you can just look in the chat. I'm about to spam you again, and it says upcoming events. Hit the link and put your contact information in there, guys. And I think that's pretty much all we got. And do this real quick. Type in where you from to where you checking in at, because we actually got somebody from Barbados, and we literally got Queen T. It says it's 3:39 and she's in London on the live. She says it's her first live. Shout out to her, and shout out to Mr. Carr dropping that $10, all going to the Soundproof. And Mr. Carr, we appreciate you. But guys, that was good.
Much love, man. Much love. She said highly initiated right here. Yes, we are highly initiated tonight. And listen, thank you guys for tuning into another episode. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Shout out
to
to
on here again. But listen, y'all already know. Hardly initiated. We are out. Yeah. Good
Wow.
job,
Is it really 1040?